Hey, how's it going? Hey, happy Saturday. How's everyone doing? Let me adjust a couple of things. Man, happy Saturday. How's it going? What are you guys working on? The usual questions, but with new and exciting answers. Yeah, happy Saturday. How's it going? Man, so many people in here already. I love it. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Included Noel. Hey, thanks for the resub. 2 months Prime during the intro. Thank you so much. Man, what is everyone up to? Hopefully everyone's doing good. Hopefully everyone's making some progress on some of their projects they have going on. I know I've been kind of making some progress on something else I've been working on. But what are you guys working on? What are you working on this Saturday? Is it tech, non-tech? Not even working on any projects? That's totally fine too. Acceptable answer as well. Also, testing kind of a new theme back here. I don't know. I'm testing a new theme or scene in Philips Hue. But you guys are free to change it. But I figured, well, I'll start with one that's not redeemable yet. And because I wanted to see how it looked. And it kind of looks okay. It's kind of okay. Also, I got my hat right here. I know someone's going to say, no hat today. It's right here. Just, all right, you changed it. Now you can't go back. So once you left that scene, it was called Palm Springs, I think. Once you leave that one, you can't get back unless I press it myself. But hey, totally. That's what the points are there for. The silver, that's what they're there for. They're there to redeem. So I appreciate it. Let me adjust my mic a little bit. Looks like I'm peaking there. There's a little bit better. All right, now I'm in the greenish yellow. Yeah, we'll stay there. So man, what are you guys working on? I'm still having some audio issues. I see it, but anyways, I'll figure it out. I say this every time. Like one day I'll really figure out my audio. It needs to be soon. I toggle back and forth between microphones and profiles and stuff like that, and still seems to be a little bit off, but I think I'll get it. Anyways, what are you guys working on? Happy Saturday. Let's see. Who is first in here? I said included Noel. Hey, thanks for the sub during the intro. Really appreciate it. Thanks for the continued support. 2 months. Yeah, man. Appreciate it. Home Lab New, first in here. Stream Hype. How's it going, man? How you doing? Getting everything, or are you accomplishing stuff? I know you've been trying quite a few things, and I think last time I saw on Discord you were thinking about spinning up a K3S cluster, so super interesting. Or maybe you were and didn't mention it until just recently. Tronan 1990, good evening, man. It's afternoon for me, but it's getting close actually. I've been thinking about starting Saturday a little bit earlier, but then when it comes around to the time, I'm like, man, I'm so behind on stuff. But anyways, how's it going? PC Geek, what's up, man? How you doing? How are things? Hopefully well, man. Hopefully well. Included no? Oh yeah. PC Geek, what's up? Hi, Lude. It's No Hat Tim today. I just called that one. I promise I didn't see that message. It's right here just in case the hair goes. I don't know. In case something happens. I got it right here. But yeah, I don't know. I just like did my hair. I don't know if there's I'm not used to saying that because I've been shaving my head for probably, 6-7 years. And so I just did my hair. So I was like, I just did my hair. I'm not going to put my hat on. But anyways, it's right here just in case. I'll end up putting it on later anyways. Because, man, my curly hair, it's like if I even touch it a little bit, it's just going to turn into just craziness. Anyways, PC Geek Banana. Yeah, thanks for testing my bot. That's one thing I don't really check anymore. It's been so stable. I've crossed my fingers. It's been so stable. I don't really check my bot anymore, which is awesome. The way it should be is that, hey, my bot, my code should be pretty stable, which, yeah, like I say, it's mediocre at best. But at the same time, now it's running in my new Kubernetes cluster, K3S cluster, and that should be pretty stable. So that's news I have. That's one big project I've been working on and finishing up, is that I finally migrated. Again, I've been migrating nonstop, I feel like, but hey, that's okay. On to bigger and better, I think. But I finally migrated everything from my old Kubernetes cluster to my new Kubernetes cluster, my K3S cluster, my HA cluster. So it's actually running really surprisingly good. And anyways, there's a couple of quirks I got to figure out. I don't know. Maybe they fixed them in the latest K3S. Who knows? But we'll see. Hey, bear. Abba Reaper. Oh, that was tough to read. Abba Reaper. Hey, thanks for the sub. Appreciate it. Prime sub. Thank you so much. Thanks for using your Twitch Prime sub on me. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. But anyways, I'll wrap up my personal stuff. Well, my personal tech stuff, but yeah, K3S running pretty solid. So I have K3S, I have Traffic 2, I have Longhorn. I actually got NFS client provisioner working too because I needed NFS for one thing. I didn't want to add an NFS storage class just because it's not as available as Longhorn, at least for me. So I did end up adding it, but mainly because one of my persistent volumes was like 3 gigs, and I'm like, do I really want to keep all of that, in Longhorn and replicate it across when none of this data ever changes? One file changes, but I still need to map, 3 gigs of static files to this container just because it needs them because they're not in the container. So anyways, those are things you'll probably have to figure out too when you start doing storage. If you're already using NFS, you don't need to worry about that. But if you start thinking about Longhorn, those are the things you're going to have to think about, or any block storage within Kubernetes. You'll have to figure that out. So apologize. Hey, Reader Strike, hey, how's it going? How are you doing? Included Null, yeah, man, how you doing? PC Geek, not getting my camera to show in the video yet. Sorry, skipped one. Giving Blue Iris a dry run. Nice. Yeah, I've been a Blue Iris user for years. I think 5-6 years maybe. It's fantastic. It's rock solid. I've had maybe 2 blips ever in my entire time of using it, and it's been working solid. And those 2 times, I think it's because I had auto updates turned on and something, I don't know. I don't know if it was Blue Iris that had the problem or my machine that tried to auto update failed during the auto update, but that's the only problem I have. But luckily in the latest version, they have auto update options now. So they have, new versions. I think they have major, minor, and patch or critical. And so I just have critical ones on it. Well, actually, I'll have to revisit it. But yeah, man, giving it a dry run. So you have some cameras, getting Blue Iris going. That's exciting, man. That's exciting. Now you can put those servers to use, and that's I think. Blue Iris. I mean, so I've been self-hosting things for a long time, and there have been a couple things that I've self-hosted where it's like, okay, that forced me to upgrade my infrastructure or look at something else or think about things differently. And Blue Iris was one of those. That's when I was like, okay, I need to build, a semi-legit server, the old gaming PC, whatever, but more than the Atom PC I had for years. So I had to add a quad-core Atom PC. That was my home lab for a long time because I didn't have a ton of need for it. Just self-hosting blogs, websites, little things, network utilities, and internal stuff. Then I got Blue Iris and I was like, oh, this is not going to work for me. So anyways, that's what forced me to upgrade my hardware. And so there are a couple things you guys will find as you start to grow out your own home infrastructure that, there are things that are going to make you upgrade. And Blue Iris was one of those. Obviously, there were other things down the road. But then once I did Blue Iris, that was like my gateway. I was like, okay, now I have this powerful machine with all this RAM. Now I can just load it full of all kinds of stuff. And so now, fast forward 7 years or something, and now it's just I have 2 servers and all kinds of stuff now. Legit servers now. I guess most servers are legit as long as they're serving out content. I guess it depends on how you look at server. But anyways, yeah, exciting about Blue Iris. I'm excited for you because it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. Silver, sup Tim? How are you doing today? I'm doing good. I'm doing really good. Kind of a slow start to the morning. I mean, Saturdays, are for me. I say this every Saturday. Kind of busy. Because I have just a whole bunch of, I don't want to say admin stuff, just a lot of stuff I have to do after I release a video. And then, from there, it's pretty chill. So from starting from now until, tomorrow morning, pretty chill. So I'm pretty good. Got some running around I have to do tonight to pick up some stuff. But other than that, yeah, gonna chill out. Redo Strike, what's going on? For me, more Python programming / learning this week. And got stuck playing some video games. Hey, there's no getting stuck to play video games. Awesome. Well, I hope your Pyful. I like it. Pyful. I'll go with it. I hope your Python programming / learning is fruitful. I hope you learn and figure out what you're trying to figure out. And if you get distracted by the occasional video game, that's totally fine. Totally fine. There's always time for that. What game are you playing? I want to know. Sotos, hoi, how's it going? Sotos, how have you been? CG bass player. Hey, Tim, thanks for the self-hosted speed test video. I plan to try it out myself tonight. Hey, no problem at all. It's pretty simple to set up. Pretty simple to set up and pretty simple to customize. And there's so many use cases for it too. That's what I realized. Like, I had, a couple use cases in my mind for how I would use it. And then like the YouTube comments, there's people all over the place. Like, yeah, we used it for, VPN for our customers to test their VPN connection back to the corporate office. I'm like, that is pretty awesome. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense, right? You want to test that VPN tunnel. So you self-host something like that and you let them come through the VPN tunnel to test the tunnel itself. Obviously that's going to test a lot of things in the pipeline. But if it's publicly hosted and depending on how VPN is configured, they might not even go through the tunnel at all if they have split DNS set up. So super awesome. So anyways, yeah, it's kind of fun, kind of lighthearted, nothing to take too seriously. I get it that there are other better network tools out there. Hey, Cyborg One. Hey, thanks for the follow, appreciate it. But I get it that there are a lot better, tools out there. Like if you're a network engineer, probably not the tool for you, right? I mean, there are better tools out there, iPerf or many perf tests where you can actually test performance and things you can do in the terminal as well. But good luck trying to get end users to run something in a terminal, right? And so this was kind of, fun for me to figure out and to test and to actually go on my TV and test and my phone and test. It's pretty awesome to have this internally where I can test this too. And so for me, it's just, real quick and dirty test to be able to test between one of my touch points and my servers, which is pretty solid connection. And then if I want to publicly host it and self-test it somewhere, I could. But with the caveat that, you're only going to be able to test at your max upload speed if you go outside your network. Anyways, I hope you get it going. It's pretty fun, pretty easy. It's a quick win. I would say a quick win. Hi, Lude. Hey, how's it going, man? You're learning Ansible, giving me reasons to drink today. All right, starting early. I like it. Yeah, I totally get it. I've tabled some of my Ansible stuff because I got it kind of working. I know that there's tons of optimizations and tweaks that I could do to get it working better. And I'll be completely honest, I didn't set up a ton of roles with my stuff. I probably should. I need to revisit my stuff. But for the most part, I've kind of been like, okay, been there, done that, on to the next thing until I have a reason to totally redo it. Give me 1 second. Sorry, I'm like trying to turn on my fan. It's getting a little warm in here. Didn't think I had to turn on the fan in the wintertime. But anyways, like what part of Ansible is making you drink? You setting up roles for stuff? Yeah, let me know. Tronan, same as Home Lab New. All right. Which was one I skipped over. Home Lab New, Rancher, and understanding it and getting it to work. Awesome. Yeah, it can be complicated. So I mean, I'll say this: getting K3S going and then getting Rancher on top of that is pretty easy. I mean, if you've done Kubernetes stuff before, Docker stuff before, I'd say pretty easy. If you've never done it before, it's going to be a little more complex than you're used to. There's going to be tools that are involved that you might not be used to. But I've tried to put that together in a consumable way with some okay documentation on how to do it and some copy pasta. There are some quirks when you decide to go from, hey, now I have these two things running and I want to get MetaLB and expose my Kubernetes cluster externally in my home. And so there are some challenges there, and I've ran into a lot of them, and I think I figured them out. And so if you're going to take that next step and get MetaLB going, just know that there are some challenges. And so I posted some things in Discord. I don't mean to be super vague about it. I just haven't had the time to totally detail out every single thing that needs to happen. But for me, that's exactly what I had to do over the last week and a half was, hey, get K3S going, get Rancher going, and then get rid of the version of traffic that ships with Rancher or ships with K3S, because not that there are problems, it's just a little bit harder to configure, and it works different. I'll just say that. And then so that forced me to rip that out and put in 2. And then 2 is, get ready for that. It's not that it's hey, Ben Gagney. Hey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. So it's not like traffic 2 is is inherently worse or more difficult. It's just different. And so, is it wrong? No. Is it different? Yes. And so it's going to be a little bit different than what you might be used to and what I was used to. So, anyways, hopefully I can put something together in a document once I have it going and working exactly the way I want, which is I'm almost there. And so my configuration's probably more complex than anyone will ever need. Maybe not. But I actually run 2 instances of traffic now, traffic 2, and I have an internal load balancer and I have an external load balancer. I have an internal, I have an internal proxy, reverse proxy, and an external reverse proxy. And then I have two Metal LB IPs basically give me 2 load balancers. And so one's for public and one's for internal. So that might be more complicated than anyone ever needs to do. So when I put this piece together, I'll definitely separate the 2 because most people won't need that. But then, after people get, some of their services publicly routed, the next question they ask me is, well, how do I get certificates for internal things? And so that's that was my motivation for this. I definitely needed that capability myself, but my motivation too was to absolutely figure this out so I can say, hey, here's how it works. I have it working, and then have a way to be able to reference my own infrastructure if someone else has some problems. So, anyways, Tronan and HomeLab New. It sounds exciting. I would just say if you're going to do the next step, Metal, I would say pause in the Metal LB. Unless you're absolutely going to need to expose some of those services outside of Kubernetes, which you most likely are. So that means I need to hurry my butt up. Soccer Bum, hey, how's it going? Caveman 69, hey, how's it going? Stig Finito, building a standing desk. Nice. Yeah, I've been through there. So I guess I didn't build mine. I did more building than most. So I had an existing desk with a good desktop that I wanted to use that I wanted to reuse and not just throw away or repurpose. And so I ended up buying legs for my desk. And so I went through a similar process. Super fun until it's not anymore. And then I actually ended up doing it again for my wife. So in one day I built 2, and then the second one had problems. So I had to tear that down, ship that back, get another one, and build it again. All within like 4 days I had to do this. So anyways, I got pretty good by the 3rd time of building it. But anyways, super fun once you get a standing desk. I'm standing right now. Like every time I stream now or every meeting I have, I just stand because it's easy. It's easy for me to remember to do. Not that I stream that often or have that many meetings, but it's a good reminder to then say, hey, you should probably stand now. Like I've been sitting all morning, so it's good. Anyways, good luck on the standing desk. It's super fun once you get it. And then you'll start just bolting everything on. I have monitor arms, microphone arms. It's super fun. And I have lights bolted on. I'm pretty sure soon I'm going to exceed the weight of what these legs can do. I think they can do 250 pounds. I'm not going to put my PC on it because 1, there's no room, and 2, I'd probably be exceeding the weight limit here soon. But yeah, sounds awesome. Sounds awesome. The silver, at the moment, nothing really, just taking a break and recharging. Hey, totally fine. Totally fine. I know how you feel. It's always good to take a break from tech stuff in general and kind of recharge. I had to do that last week. I took streaming off Tuesday. It was last week, and it was just it was kind of recharged, but it was more get caught up on some stuff. And for me, the way I recharge is changing focus. And so, there's many ways I can, but I found 2 for me to focus on something else is a way that I recharge too. So anyways, totally fine. Hope you get recharged. Tronan, also finding out how to make my kids listen when I tell them to go clean their rooms. Yeah, good luck with that. Good luck with that. I have zero advice in that department because I couldn't tell you either. Norton Tech, hello, how's it going? Caveman, Srigfino, Finito, I've been thinking about that. How's it working? I missed that one. Sorry, I'm gonna keep going. Sorry, I missed a thread on there. Let's see. Also finding out. Nope. Jacket Bandcast. Setting up Keycloak Gatekeeper from my exposed cluster to avoid kube control port forwarding. Awesome. Yeah. That sounds awesome. So then you're probably doing it external then too. And your port forwarding. Yeah. So I know exactly what you mean when you do kube control port forward. It's a way to expose your services and port forward those ports back to your own local machine so you can do things to them. And sometimes you just don't want those services exposed at all. And so kube control port forward is the way to kind of get around that temporarily, at least for your own machine. So that's interesting. I have I know Keycloak exists. I haven't done a ton with it, but that's super interesting. You'll have to let us know how it goes for sure. Mr. Paul Black, hey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. T. Groutman, happy Saturday. Happy Saturday to you too. TBS backer, hi everyone. How's it going? Stig Finito. It's not the electrical one, by the way. It's just DIY. Okay. Oh, no, I like it. Okay. So it's totally DIY. So I had an electrical one. I've had IKEA ones too that were hand crank, but you're talking about 100% DIY. I love it. I love it. You have to let me know how you built it, because super interested in that. Thunderstorm, happy Saturday. How's it going? Sotos, have you guys been able to use a second screen with Ubuntu Radeon 6800? I couldn't tell you the answer to that. I haven't done dual monitor Ubuntu stuff for a long time. Hopefully it's better. I mean, most of the Ubuntu I run now is just server. Like I mentioned before, I don't normally, I don't have a desktop version of Ubuntu installed anywhere. I used to have it on an old laptop, which, arguably I still didn't have a second monitor, but video and sound have always been the hardest things to ever get working on Linux. I'm sure that's changed in the last 5 years since I've actually, installed and ran a desktop as my main machine. I'm sure it has. Hey, Jorgensen, hey, thank you so much. Cheered 100 bits. Thank you so much. Have some bits. Hey, thank you. And you got to see my Mega Man. That was awfully loud too. But thank you, I appreciate it. Thanks for the bits, appreciate it. But Sotos, I haven't. I put in another M.2 drive into my machine mainly because I had one laying around from my old server, and I was like, maybe I can dual boot some Ubuntu. Anyways, but I don't have a Radeon card, so good luck with that. Bigsby, hey Tim, happy New Year. Thanks so much. Thanks for all your vids, massively helpful. I now have 2 home servers, and the vids were a huge help in setting them all up. Awesome, yeah, awesome. So I'm assuming then if you have 2 servers, I'm gonna guess you're virtualizing with Proxmox, and then maybe you got some Docker containers in there. I'm guessing if you say my videos help, because otherwise you'd be like, yeah, I'm not doing that. I'm glad they help. Let me know more about your infrastructure, what was helpful, or how it's set up, or anything. T. Groutman, in the spirit of code generation, I have code automation generating snippets for C++, C#, and JS. Interesting. So you have code automation generating snippets. I like it. Man, this is, you have code generating code. I like it. That's awesome. Is it doing transcoding or transpiling or cross language, or do you have automation in place for each language? Because that's super interesting for sure. And I've seen some machine generated code before. Usually it's kind of sometimes when you're like, yeah, I'm running whatever language and I run this other language, translate all my code, sometimes it doesn't turn out so well. So I'm curious what you're using, if it's homegrown or if it's a tool. Interesting. Thunderstorm, I just got a Pi 4B 8 gig to play with. Nice. On my short list, a Pi 4 for sure. Pi 4B for sure. I have Pi 3s, Pi 0s. Never got a 4, but I'm interested for sure. And I actually just I just reclaimed one of my Pis. It was in the office forever, and it was there. And we're doing some moving around, and so anyways, I got my Pi back, and I'm like, what am I gonna do with this? So I need a project for a Pi 2. Anyways, what are you gonna run on your Pi 4? That's the big question. On Norden Tech, are you controlling Philips Hue's with Home Assistant? Sadly, I'm not. So, no, my Philips Hue right now, speaking of Philips Hue, hey, thanks for spending the points. Thanks for earning them. Thanks for spending them. It's a series of tubes and code I wrote. No, it's so high level. So I'm still using the Philips Hue hub to control my lights. In there, I set up different scenes. And then from there, Philips Hue has an API that you can interact with code. And then from there, I then wrote a bunch of custom code to change the scenes in here in my room based on Twitch events, which the events are point redemptions. And so I wired up Twitch point redemptions to a custom code that I have to then tell Philips Hue to change the scene. It's kind of crazy, but that's high level how it works. I have a bot in the channel who listens for events. When those events fire, he goes and tells my other service that I have running, hey, switch the Philips Hue lights. And then Philips Hue just says, hey, give me your token. You got a token? Cool. What do you want? You want the scene? Okay, I changed the scene. And then there's some other code controlling the stuff down below too, because those aren't Philips Hue lights. Those are just some LED infrared lights, and so I've done that with a Broadlink infrared controller. So, anyways, yeah, it's a series of tubes. I'd say that. But yeah, so yeah, I love Home Assistant. Oh, and speaking of Home Assistant, I meant to kind of mention this, but I saw on Home Assistant now and Google. So, anyways, a lot of people say, ask me like, am I still using Home Assistant? And for a long time, I had to back out of Home Assistant for a little bit, mainly because of Google Nest. And so Google Nest had their works with Nest program. And so Home Assistant could tap into that, and they were able to then control any Nest device. And then they discontinued that and did away with it. And then so Home Assistant was everyone, I'm not just picking on Home Assistant, but anything that integrated directly with Nest now no longer had an API to do that. They shut it down. Well, then fast forward to, I think maybe a couple weeks ago, Nest opened it back up, and they do it through Google Cloud. Like now I understand what they were doing. They're getting their services into GCP, into Google Cloud Platform. And so anyways, now you then can sign up for a developer account for Google, and now that's available to the public, Home Assistant's been able to tap into that. And so there's been a crappy integration that's been there with Nest for a long time. I think it was even named crappy integration. I think they were just saying like, hey, this is like, make it work. This isn't anything, too terribly, well, it's pretty sophisticated, but nothing, I guess, robust, and kind of brittle, and that's what I found it to be. So anyways, long story short, looks like Home Assistant now can communicate with Nest. You just got to sign up for Google Developer Program, which Nest has, or Home Assistant has all the documentation there. Long story short, the whole reason why I brought that up is because Nest was the reason why I had stopped using Home Assistant, because I couldn't control, a third of my devices in my home, but now I can. So now I have some options. So anyways, there were two parts to that answer. One, I'm not controlling with Home Assistant, I'm controlling with my own custom code. And two, so glad Home Assistant now can support Nest once again. And I should say it that way because it had nothing to do with Home Assistant and everything to do with Google Nest. So anyways, yeah, super awesome. So over, haha, you said only once, and I thought you said, and I thought I have to change it. Hey, Andrea, Bia, hello, Tim. Hey, how's it going? Just got your comment. How are you doing? Welcome. Norton Tech, Weld. Willette, I don't know how to pronounce that. Maybe that's a typo. Included Noel. I recently migrated my 100 terabyte Unraid server to a new 24 bay hot swap case. Nice. And I'm also replacing 8 terabyte drives with the new 12 terabyte ones, one by one. Wow. Also started a YouTube channel and made videos about what I'm doing. Awesome. Congratulations. That sounds like a huge effort to be able to migrate. Curious what 24 hot swap bay case you got. Super curious about that, because I'm always curious about that, because I have my disk array, but ever since I bought it, I keep my eyes open to other products that are out there. It's hard to find decent ones for a decent price. So let me know. Awesome that you're migrating all of that. 100 terabyte. That's a lot of disk. I'm at 50, around 50 terabytes raw storage. You know, with ZFS, obviously, I'm gonna lose half the way I have mine set up. But awesome, and congrats on the YouTube channel. PC Geek, you seem kind of quiet now. Oh, am I quiet? I'll turn it up just a tiny bit. There we go. I gotta work on the audio, because I peak though if I get too excited, and I don't want to peak, so I'm trying not to peak while not trying to be too loud, and I need to just adjust my settings in my mixer. I can't. Yeah, you would think that my profiles would remember these, but for some reason it doesn't. Anyways, 5-angle. Just stumbled across your channel a few weeks ago while researching ESXi alternatives. I'm absolutely loving it. Thank you. Yeah. I got at least one ESXi alternative in there, and it's not to say that ESXi is not a good product. It's just kind of expensive, you know, and it's you know, I don't want to knock it because it's not open source, because I get it. It's like it's an enterprise solution, albeit so can Proxmox be. But 5-angle, yeah, glad you found it. Hope you like it. Let me know if you have any feedback. Abba Reaper, loving the proof. Mine gets that way if I grow it out too. The poof, yeah, totally. It does. And yeah, it used to be even poofier. Like when I was younger, it was just like I'll wake up and it was just like, you know, big poof. TBS Backer. So I got my network layout done. Proxmox server 1. All right, foreshadowing. Is up and running. Another one will be added in the near future. Now trying to decide if I go for Kubernetes setup or start with Docker Swarm. Any opinions on that for a simple Docker cluster setup? Kate's might be overkill. It depends. I mean, as soon as you say cluster, then I automatically, well, if you say container cluster, automatically, I'm just gonna say Kubernetes. I get it that it can be complicated, but which one do you want to learn? I mean, Swarm, I couldn't tell you in my head like how I would set up Swarm. I'd have to research and learn something new as well. You know, and maybe Swarm is easier, and just my lack of experience with Swarm. Done a ton of stuff with, you know, Docker Compose, creating my own custom Docker containers, registry, build during CI, publish, you name it. Plain old Docker. Swarm, I couldn't even tell you anything about it, mainly because, you know, of my own experience. It just depends on what you want to learn. If you want to learn, you know, Kubernetes, you know, go for it. I'd say it. If you think that Docker Swarm is simpler, go for it. Yeah, go for it. You know, I always, me personally, I lean towards like, okay, so let's just roll back a little bit. So you're going beyond just plain old Docker, and you want to have, you know, you want to get some clustering with your workloads, with your container workloads. And, you know, immediately I think in my head, yep, absolutely go Kubernetes, because of all of the things you get with it. And the same could be said probably about Swarm. But then my second lens I put on it is like, what skill, you know, is going to be, what skill can I transfer to other things I do in the future, or maybe at my current job, or maybe for a job I want, or maybe not even for a job, but I want to learn something about some new tech. And that's where I just go to Kubernetes, because if you think about, you know, all the companies using this, it's incredible at how many, it's just become the de facto standard for container orchestration for almost everyone, and everyone is generalizing. Hey, Nemesis 022, thanks for the sub, Prime sub. Thank you, appreciate it. Thank you so much. But anyways, Kubernetes has quickly become the de facto standard for containerization orchestration. And so when I think about all of that, you know, me personally, if I didn't know either of the two, I would just go with Kubernetes, just because you're going to find that, you know, you're going to find a ton of information on it, and then you're going to find a ton of companies that are using it. There's just a lot of gravity or a lot of force or inertia there, you know, with a product like that. It does come with a lot of complexity, though, I'm not going to lie. But, you know, if I'm, again, go back to, if I don't know about either technology, there's going to be complexity with either. So anyways, overkill is opinionated. So it just depends on what you want. Because like you could argue then if Kubernetes is overkill, Swarm is probably overkill for clustering. If you didn't need clustering, if you don't need clustering at all, I mean, you could go plain old Docker. So anyways, you have a lot of options there. I'll let you do the research. Let me know what you choose. Let me know what you choose for sure. Included, no, real quick, 2 follows, Busey, Phallus, that's hard to, I think that's it. Phallus, Busey Phallus, hey, thanks for the follow, appreciate it, welcome. Loctvius Primus, hey, thanks for the follow, appreciate it, welcome, how you doing? Included, no, I'm also working on trying to replace the front layer of a monitor screen, one from a broken donor screen, hopefully. Oh, interesting, like that's interesting. Good luck with that. I always wonder, I've replaced very few screens. I've never replaced a panel. So a monitor or LCD panel. I've never replaced one before. Just because I guess I've had ones that have had dead pixels. I've never cracked one. But yeah, that sounds interesting. I've replaced a phone screen before. It was not fun. And I did it more just to see if I could do it. Cause to me, the phone was just a test phone anyways that I tested my Android apps on, and I didn't want to buy another one. So I was like, hey, for 20 bucks, it's, for the parts and, a couple hours of time, it's worth a shot. So let me know how that goes. Never done it. Zach Trek, hey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. Vinay, CS50, what is Docker? Well, how much time you got? No, Docker is a containerization, an application containerization, platform. And it allows you to create and spin up applications or processes that are containerized or segmented or I'll go with segmented from the rest of the operating system so that they can run on their own without interfering with the rest of the operating system. And so that might be super complicated if you've never heard of Docker before. But just think, on your Windows, Mac, Linux machine, you install software, and those are, I don't want to say thick install, but those are installed and those files are written to, the hard drive. In Docker, they still kind of get written to a volume, and the Docker engine takes care of a lot of that with layering that volume where it needs to go. But at the end of the day, if you want to remove that Docker container, you can simply remove it and it will leave almost, arguably no trace that it was ever there. And so files don't get left over. And there's stuff with networking. There's all kinds of stuff and all kinds of benefits. So anyways, I would just go to docker.com and look at their marketing page because it'll tell you exactly what it is. But from a high level, it's just keeping a process in a container so that you can ship that process anywhere and run it anywhere that can run Docker. The same as if it's running on your local machine or a server or Mac, Windows, Linux, anywhere, as long as that process supports all of those platforms. Same with architecture too. You could run the same. The containers need to be compiled for different processor architectures, but could run on a Raspberry Pi the same that it runs on your Windows desktop as on your Mac or your Linux machine. I'm kind of doing a little bit of hand waving because obviously the container gets compiled for a different architecture, but at the end of the day, that process should be able to run kind of anywhere, and you'd have to pick and choose a different container for your processor type. But I'm getting a little bit too deep on that. But yeah, it's an awesome technology, and a lot of people use it, especially and when it comes to services, because it allows you to ship those services to any server, and then if you want, put them inside of an orchestration framework like Swarm or like Kubernetes, and run those anywhere. So yeah, Norton Tech. I'm wondering why you guys stick with Unraid instead of Proxmox and ZFS. Yeah, I can't answer that because I'm not using it. It does come up a lot. And Unraid is, I look at Unraid and it looks like a pretty good tech consumer product. To where, hey, maybe you don't want to run Proxmox, or you don't have the hardware, you don't have the infrastructure, I'll just say, to run something like Proxmox. And that might mean that you just don't have enough disks. You don't want to use ZFS and allocate that much RAM and disks to the file system. that it's going to create the software RAID. And so a lot of people choose it for a lot of different reasons. I will say too that Unraids, they've made it semi, consumer friendly. I'll say home lab consumer friendly, to where they figured out a lot of the tough stuff. They figured out how to get, Docker to run, how to get GPU pass-throughs to run, how to get virtualization. And so it's kind of an all-in-one. And so I think it sits somewhere between, buying your own NAS, like a Synology, and building your own entire server with Proxmox, or name your hypervisor. So I think Unraid kind of sits in between there. A lot of consumer, it leans towards the consumer side. I don't know if this is consumer side. So if Synology's over here, it's kind of in the middle, to, hey, I'm going to roll my own everything. Sometimes people don't want to roll their own everything. And I get that. Sometimes I don't want to roll my own everything. That's why I use libraries in my code, because I don't want to write my own code when somebody's already figured it out. And so, there's probably plenty of reasons, and I probably don't know most of the use cases why people choose it, because I roll my own, my own, hypervisor. Not my own hypervisor, but I chose my own hypervisor. I chose my own orchestration framework. I choose, Docker. I choose, I have handpicked a lot of the solutions and put them in my network purposely. Where some people might just say, hey, I just give me the platform. I know exactly what to do. I know exactly what I want. Just give me a platform to run all of this stuff in one, and give me something that might not be ZFS, because I want a JBOD, or I want to, add disks to my array a lot easier than you can with ZFS. So anyways, I'm speculating because I don't run it, but I hear those kinds of use cases. So yeah, included null, and I'm still playing my 1U 3-node Proxmox cluster using a Lenovo 3 mini PCs and a 1U case switch and a KVM. Awesome. Yeah, those are super hot right now. Super hot right now, the Lenovo minis for sure. Home lab new banana drop schema public. Yeah, that's not gonna work. Oh gosh, I hope that's not gonna work. I guess I'd have to use, I guess my bot would have to know about MySQL, and my bot has no idea about SQL. And he knows about Mongo stuff. I'm giving hints. Maybe I'm not. Actually, I don't know if my channel bot knows about Mongo. Anyways, oh gosh, I'm glad that didn't drop my schema. Good try though, Home Lab new. Good try. Oh gosh, we're getting back into let's break my bot. Caveman 69. Windows admin looking for a new engaging project. Not sure where I'm going. All right. Lots of projects. I think this channel has, and this whole entire community has lots of suggestions on projects. If you're a Windows administrator, hey, try something on Linux. I mean, maybe you don't want to, it's totally fine too. Or try something new in Windows that you haven't done before, or something in Windows administration you haven't done before. I'm sure if you're a Windows admin, you've probably done a ton of stuff, AD, DHCP, DNS, WSUS, SCCM, if that's still a thing. It's been a while since I've been in the Windows game, but any kind of management type stuff for Windows, yeah, give that a shot if you haven't done it. If not, hey, there's tons of projects in Linux that we can recommend for sure. Home Lab new, oh yeah. Panama Killer, I actually tried your video on installing Rancher and getting Rancher working, and for some reason it didn't work for me. I can use CentOS. Can you redo or go slower on that YouTube video? So I probably won't redo. I don't want to say won't, but probably not anytime soon, because I can only allocate enough time per week to one video. And so redoing something that already exists to me is, while you may be stuck, like it provides, it doesn't provide a lot of utility to a lot of other people. But that being said, I get it that there are, since I released that video, Rancher's changed a couple things, and the hiccups that people get stuck on are not passing in the correct flag, maybe not setting the ports properly, because, Rancher changed some stuff. And then the last one is flags, ports, can't tell you. It was on the tip of my tongue. But I will say that there is documentation behind it. So if you are on that video, I think it's even in the description, basically like, hey, use this command, click this doc, and try it that way. Go slower piece, I'd say pause. That's all I can say, pause. Because the technology's there for you to pause. So I rather than make my videos, whatever, twice as long as they need to be, I just figure people will pause. Because otherwise, like I'll lose people who don't want to pause, and by creating long gaps of silence, as I've learned. Anyways, we can offer definitely Panama 1 killer. Definitely reach out in Discord and I can follow up for sure. Included null, I prefer unrated because I can swap and add and upgrade drives whenever I need to. All right, that's the one use case that I was just talking about earlier, for sure. Dex Vinyl, evening Tim in chat. Hey, good evening, good afternoon, how are you? Abba Reaper, first time catching your stream, just wanted to say thank you for your videos. They're motivating me to learn about Kubernetes Rancher, typically only use Docker and Docker Compose. Hey, awesome. Congratulations, it's gonna hurt. I'm not gonna lie, it's gonna hurt. It's but I think it's even if you never end up using Kubernetes anywhere in the enterprise, it's still good to know it exists, that something like that exists and that capability exists. And I know it comes in a different form, can come in a different form, like Swarm, or I think Mesos, is that still a thing from Apache? And then they'd probably be like, yeah, it's still a thing. We work on it every day. But and then Kubernetes. But I think that the takeaway is, the problem it's trying to solve, and the problem it's trying to solve is how do you scale services and guarantee their uptime? And so, I mean, really, I think there are probably lots of problems they're trying to solve. But when I think of Kubernetes, that's what I think of. How do I scale services? And then how do I guarantee their uptime? Does a ton of other stuff, but those are some things that are hard to solve with just one instance of Docker or one instance of your container running. And it takes a lot of architecture and a lot of thinking and planning ahead of time to be able to scale your services. You can't just take any old service and be like, yep, scale 20, work. And it's not going to work like that. And so those are other things that people need to figure out as well. Like, I mean, a classic example is Plex. Plex runs in a Docker container. Can you scale Plex to 20 Docker containers and expect it to work the way that one does? No, because that whole entire service hasn't been, they haven't taken into consider concurrency at all. And so, anyways, I'm going way too deep into it, but that's why I think it's good to be aware of those kind of things. If it's too tough, too complicated, you don't want to learn it, you can absolutely stick with Docker Compose. It's fantastic because I always say that you've done the hard part of kind of breaking the mold and thinking different about your services that you're running. And rather than just saying one service per VM or as many services as I can get on a VM until I have port conflicts, that's what I'm going to do. You've already done the hard work and said, no, I'm going to think about containers and think about containerizing these services. And sure, you can have them all on one virtual machine then, or however you want to, design or plan your network and infrastructure. Absolutely. But I think you've done the hard work already. So I think you're 99% of the way there. If that works for you at home, plain old Docker, absolutely go for it. I still run plain old Docker for some of my stuff. I mean, one of my load balancers, plain old Docker. Some of my databases, plain old Docker. Because I don't need clustering, and some of those services I need to be running outside of Kubernetes to facilitate Kubernetes. So I chose purposely not to do I hate to say thick install because it's what we used to say, thick versus thin, but that was more for remote desktop services or Citrix or anything like that. I choose Docker anytime I need to install stuff, just because it's so easy to change and clean up. And I think the biggest win for me, outside of making it repeatable, is the ability to change its ports. Because if I want to run 3, 4, 5 instances of MySQL, which I do, not 5, 3, all on the same machine, absolutely I can. And changing the ports is just as easy as exposing a different port on Docker. I don't have to touch any config files or anything. But arguably, I gotta, use a different Docker command or change my compose. But anyways, I'm going too far on that. But I would say go with what you're comfortable with doing. You want to learn about Kubernetes, go for it. If not, hey, like I said, you've already done the hard work of getting planning your infrastructure for containers. Norton Tech, is there an open source alternative to Blue Iris? That's a tough one. The main problem for me is Blue Iris is Windows. Yeah, I'll follow up with that one. That one's tough. That one is tough. There are some, but I will say that they're nowhere near the level that Blue Iris is. And I totally agree. Like, I agree with that sentiment. Where you say, hey, it runs on Windows, and believe me, I have nothing against Windows. This stream is brought to you by Windows right now. All right, I use every platform: Mac, Linux, Windows. The right tool for the job. I do feel like that at the time that was built, that developer chose Windows probably because of hardware support and lots of other things. There were probably reasons why they chose it to be on Windows, which kind of stinks if your infrastructure is mostly Linux or containerization. So that's tough. So I'm always actively hoping and wishing two things. One, that either Blue Iris will switch to a Docker container. I know that one kind of exists. It's a little jank. And that's nothing against the person who built it or works on it. Not trying to throw any shade on you. I'm just saying, like, you did the best you could do with trying to make it work with the technology it wasn't made to work with. But it's not a first class, containerized application, which kind of stinks, because I would love to run Blue Iris in a container, because and the same for OBS for other reasons, but because if I do that, then I have an easy way to share that container with my GPU and all the other reasons you get for containerization. So are there open source alternatives out there? I think there are like two. I think there are like two. And Holy Merc, or Manny, in our Discord server has tested quite a few of them. I think there were weeks where he was just switching to a different one every time and evaluating them. But I will say that Blue Iris is fantastic at what it does. I've been using it for 5-6 years, maybe longer. I don't want to do the math right now. I start to realize how old I am. I don't want to do the math right now, but I've been using it for a long time, and it's a great product. I do wish there was an open source alternative out there. And there are kind of a few, but I haven't found any as robust as Blue Iris, because thing just works. And if you think about all the camera support, if you've ever used it, you know that when you go and configure a camera, you have the ability for the Blue Iris client to go out and query the camera that you're trying to set up. And if you look at the list of cameras that they've tested and set up and figured out auto configuration for, that alone is incredible. So anyways, I don't know of one off the top of my head. There's been a few suggestions in Discord. I've never been 100% brave enough to trust them. not to say that there's anything nefarious about them. I just mean to trust, to make that leap from a home security to this product, because I know nothing about it, and I guess that's what I should say. It's not trust as in I don't trust the code that's running or they're doing nefarious things. No, it's just that I don't know enough about them to uproot the home security that I have in place right now. I should learn more about them, but I don't know. It's Blue Iris is pretty polished. Do I wish it ran on Linux or in containers? 100%. I'd probably pay double to have that, but I might be the minority there. PC Geek, well, I had it working with 2 cameras. It stunk though on my Windows VM, meaning it just needed a lot of CPU to monitor the video, so it might need to change some of my settings perhaps. Yeah, PC Geek, I can give you some suggestions for tuning Blue Iris, because I've tuned it a lot over the years. The first thing you could do to tune it and get probably 100% performance increase is, one, run it as a service and don't keep the UI open. You'll see your CPU drop by probably 50%. And so that was one of my things for a long time, because I was like, yeah, I'll just RDP into it. It'll always be open. Yeah, this is great. Hey, Chicken Man, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. So that was one of the things. I just left it open, the client UI, left it open, figured it out, I'll RDP into it. And then anytime I need to look at it, it's right there. And so no, that's what I would do is run it as a service, never open the UI unless you need to. And then if you have the app, use the app. If you don't have the app, use the web view. Web view is actually fantastic on there. I wish they would totally get rid of the client UI and go with web UI, but on the client, because it's a lot more modern. But anyways, yeah, give that a shot. If not, ping me in Discord. I've done a ton of tuning of Blue Iris over the years, and I have it running pretty well. Probably room for improvement. I'll probably learn some stuff from you too. Let's see here. Lucan Kratas. Hi Tim, how are you? I'm fantastic. I'm working on a PowerShell script for LS Dyna execution. LS Dyna is software simulating physics of high-speed actions. Example, crash tests. They have released a little restricted academic license. Anyway, I've been writing down questions for the stream the whole week. Oh gosh. Oh man, I'm not ready for this. Hope you're ready. By the way, self-hosted speed test video is awesome. Oh gosh. Oh, I hope you're joking, because I have very little to offer about PowerShell. I've done some before. I can probably rattle off 3-4 commands. I'm sure, I mean, there are a lot of people in here who are well-versed in PowerShell. Hopefully I can answer them. Hopefully you're joking. I hope you're joking more than that. Bigsby, Saturday is just finishing for us here in the UK. Hey, well, hey, yeah, it is. You're what? It's about 10 p.m. there, depending on where you are. However far east or west you are, 10, 11, 12 p.m. or a.m. Well, hope it was well for you. Hopefully I'm new. Technotim, I think I'm going to follow your standing desk tutorial and see, as I may be in the US for a while. All right. Some way. Hey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. I'm a huge fan of just changing your position. Because I hear that like standing all the time is not good and sitting all the time is not good. So somewhere in between I think is better. And I'm not like, oh, you must stand. Like, no, I sit my butt down for a long time. And so, you know, it just gives me some flexibility. And me, I'm really tall. And so I've always struggled with desk height. My whole entire life, even when I was a kid. Like, I'm like, these desks are, you know, I'm cramped in this desk. I can barely fit because I'm a big person. And so even if you don't stand, you know, I can adjust this desk, you know, 2 inches, 3 inches up or down, or 10 inches or standing. And so that for me was a win, because I've always had to adjust my chair. And sometimes adjusting your chair isn't good because then your knees get too bent. I mean, you guys know this stuff. So for me, like even if I never stood, I would still get a standing desk because I can raise it to my torso or however far down I'm slouching at the moment. And then the reason why I went with legs, it was actually an accident. It was because the desk that I wanted was sold out, obviously, during the pandemic. Everyone's like, I'm doing all my home office redos, makeovers. And then I was like, well, I bought this IKEA desktop a while ago, and I love it. Fantastic. We actually own 4 now because they're so affordable. It's like solid wood, $99, and you get like a 6-foot plank. Anyways, I went with that IKEA real wood, and then I bought the legs, and it couldn't have turned out better. The nice part is, if I ever get a bigger piece of wood, like I get an 8-foot, 10-foot desk, that's getting a little crazy, but I would love it at some point. Then I can just take the legs off, put them back on. So anyways, it's really cool. It's really cool. Just find some decent legs. The ones I have, I think, are rising up. They're super good. They're super good. So I have links, or ping me if you want to know the exact name or brand. But I love them. I actually have 2 different brands in here, but that's besides the point because we have 2 desks. And one was sold out. Anyways, it's super. It's awesome. It's a new perspective. Redo Strike started Death Stranding and some modded Minecraft. Nice. How's that going? Modded Minecraft. Yeah, that sounds super fun. Lucan Kratas. So I understand what is a proxy and a reverse proxy. But what is the purpose? Added layer of security? Lucan Kratas. I mean, a proxy, obviously, that one's kind of easy. You go in one way and you might get spit out a different way, right? Hey, Craven, thanks for the resub. 3 months. No, tier 3, 7 months. Dude, how are you? Thank you so much, dude. Appreciate it. How you been, man? Thank you so much. 7 months straight, tier 3. Dude, dedication. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Hope you're well. So a reverse proxy, I mean, that's the one that might be a little bit more challenging to describe. But for me, the way that I use a reverse proxy is so that I can use one IP address to then send that traffic to any web host that I want. So if you think about it, let's say you have one server and that one server's running and it has an IP address, right? But you want to host 5 websites on there, right? So you want to host 5 websites. Well, the reverse proxy, what it allows me to do is tell all of those requests. Well, I would set it up in DNS and basically say all of these host names are pointing at this one IP address. And so that reverse proxy allows those requests to come in. It'll inspect the header and say, hey, you go to this service here. And so all of those services might be listening on port 80, right? And well, you can't expose multiple port 80s on one server. And so some people have just said, well, okay, well, whatever, I'll just change the port. So I'll have 8080, 8081, 8082, 8083, 8084, so on and so forth. And so then they just go directly to that host on that port. But what a reverse proxy can do, amongst other things, is give you one endpoint where you can hit on port 80 and then route that traffic to those services behind it on port 80 so that you don't have to play that port game. There's obviously a lot of other stuff you can do there too. That's also where I terminate my SSL. So I can set up SSL on that reverse proxy. So when someone comes in, it's over SSL to that reverse proxy. That can then route that traffic to that individual service. And everything gets routed and it's over SSL and it terminates right there. And so and then that's one place where you need to terminate SSL and one place where you need to keep those certificates. And not have those certificates on 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, one certificate per device. You just have them on your reverse proxy and it gets terminated there. And then that can communicate with the backend service from there. So, I mean, it's probably oversimplified. I probably made some mistakes in there. But that's how I use them. And they can be used for many, many different things. And so, proxy and reverse proxy are kind of the opposite. One in, many out, or many in, one out. So reverse proxy is everything I just described before. That's how I use it. So probably not the best explanation, but hopefully that helps. Let's see here. I'm going to go back to here. Okay. Dex Vinyl just dropped Ruby on Rails, lick a hot potato, and headed to the world of Python and Django. Oh my God, it's brain breaking. Yeah, I bet. I bet. Oh man, but I think it's a step in a good direction. I mean, I know very little about Rails, and arguably I know very little about Python and Django. I just know that they have a lot of momentum right now, and you could say that about any language when it just came out. But it's super popular, it's super modern, and I think you'll get a lot of support. And there are a lot of tools now that are built around, and there's a whole entire new ecosystem around those languages and those tools. So good luck. I mean, I felt that way too when I started doing a little bit of Python, because I've typically done, Node.js, JavaScript, TypeScript. I've done a lot of .NET and stuff too. But I felt that way when I started doing Python. I'm like, oh my gosh, like this is breaking my brain. Not only in just the language syntax, but the tools around it and the names of tools and how you set up projects. Just keep at it. That's all I can say. You'll get there. I mean, I went through the same thing when I went from .NET to JavaScript or TypeScript. I'm just like, what? I went from types to no types to back to types. I'm like, oh, okay, what's going on now? But anyways, I think you'll do fine. Just keep at it for sure. Xtink, hey, thanks for follow, appreciate it. S Blue, thanks for follow, appreciate it. Welcome. Sunway, I said that one. If not, thanks for follow, appreciate it. Welcome. Thank you guys so much for stopping in and for following. I really appreciate it. 5-angle, replacing a Dell i7 620M laptop. Wait. Oh yeah, I was like server lap. Wait, here we go. Laptop running side-loaded drivers with ESXi with the E3 1230 PowerEdge with Proxmox, and your perfect detailed tutorials have been a huge time saver. Though I would join and shower. Wait, what's going on here? Though I would join and shower you with the praise you deserve. Okay, I was like, there was a line break there. I'm like, shower, this is getting kind of weird. But hey, thank you. I appreciate you stopping in and saying that. Let me know if in your journey there's something missing, something I can clarify on for sure. Kez, hello from New Zealand. Hey, how's it going, man? It is late, or it's probably early in the morning there, or really late. I can't tell. I'm going with early morning. Lugan Kratas, what is the purpose of agents in Kubernetes? Yeah, you got lots of good questions today. These are great. So agents, it depends. So the way that people usually break up their Kubernetes clusters is to say that, hey, I have API nodes. So they used to be called masters and slaves, and they've been renamed since, or they've been trying to rename them to what? API servers and agents. So agents, I think, is what you're asking about. And so now when you have API servers and agents, the way that people break them up usually is that the API servers are mostly responsible for control plane within Kubernetes, keeping everything in sync and everything else that's core to Kubernetes. Kube control commands coming from external, and then instructing and routing agents on what to do. So agents, typically, the way that I use them is I try to only run user workloads on agents. It's an easy way to just, to segment that traffic and that work and separation of concerns, to basically say that, hey, API servers or control planes only do Kubernetes core stuff, core DNS, all the core Kubernetes stuff. And then agents are only responsible for running workloads for me. And so agents in this case for me that's where, my custom web servers run. That's where, if you're doing whatever Plex, that's where, LibreSpeed, that's where those workloads are going to run. And so that's, they don't have to be used that way. But at the end of the day, that's how I use mine. And so really they take on user workloads. And arguably they can do other things, and there's a lot of critical add-ons that still get pile onto there, but you can see them. Anyways, I'm kind of rambling. Moral of the story is that's where you should run any of your pods that you're deploying to it. And not everyone configures them, configures their cluster that way. Hopefully that's that's probably mediocre explanation of that. Rex Roof, what sort of agents? All right, you guys are figuring it out. I'm Bad and Bougie. Huge fan. I got my Kubernetes cluster working with Rancher, thanks to you. Awesome, yeah. I'm just having a hard time understanding how pods containers use resources. Can you explain how you assign resources like drive, CPU, RAM, or is it done automatically? And do disk usage grow automatically? Hope that makes sense. No, it totally makes sense. It totally makes sense. So these are some of the things, choices you have to make up front. Just like, hey, when you set up your Kubernetes cluster, or what I was just talking about, your agents. Do you want your agents to only run user workloads? And in my case, it's yes. So when I set up my new Kubernetes cluster, I had a standard template where I'm like, every single node. So when I say node, I just mean a server in my cluster. Every single node within my cluster is going to be, what is it going to be? And so I had asked myself that question, right? Because I could say, yeah, I'll give it 24 CPUs, 32 gigs of RAM, 120 terabytes, sure, whatever, 100 gigs of RAM, disk space, and go. But no, when I chose my infrastructure, I tried to look at cloud platforms and say, okay, what kind of nodes or what kind of virtual machines do they provision, or what kind of resources do they give those virtual machines that they provision when you get Kubernetes, or what can you buy from the cloud? And so I kind of modeled mine off that, and I found, I think it was a smaller medium node, was like 8 cores, 8 gigs of RAM, and then 60 gigs of hard drive space. Hard drive space is the biggest variable, because a lot of the cloud providers, I mean, they won't even like recommend one. They're just like, how much disk space do you want on this? And maybe there's some guidance around it. So then those 3 things, CPU, RAM, and disk space, will dictate how many pods that node can run. And so that pod is, just think user workload, just think LibreSpeed or whatever we did today, LibreSpeed or something, web server. That's your pod, and it can be one or more containers. So you could say, hey, like LibreSpeed is probably a good example of one that you could scale up to 20 if you want, right? Because everyone who hits it is gonna get sent to a different pod, and it doesn't matter because it's I wouldn't say stateless, but it doesn't have any concurrency issues because it doesn't talk to services in the backend. Anyways, I digress. So Kubernetes kind of determines where it's going to put stuff based on how busy some things are. Like there's a whole entire algorithm for it to know where to put pods. And there's a calculation it does too on how many pods your whole entire cluster can handle, how much your nodes can handle based on the workloads that are available, or based on the resources that are available. Anyways, I mean, I couldn't tell you the algorithm or how it determines right off the top of my head, but it does determine where to place pods. It will try to fit those pods into places where it can. I mean, there might be times where a pod is, say, I think there's a constraint on most of them where it says, hey, reserve 20% of disk space for whatever, which is probably a good thing. Mr. Jbot, hey, thanks for the follow, appreciate. Welcome. So Kubernetes, depending on how it's configured, I think with K3s or Rancher, they reserve some part of the disk space to say, hey, do not exceed this much. If you do, you have disk pressure or get some warnings, right? And that's a good thing. That's a good thing because you want your Kubernetes cluster to still run. And some pods, take up more RAM or take up more CPU or take up more disk space as they run, as they grow. They get bigger or more, take on more resources over time. They can, right? So anyways, Kubernetes tries to figure out where to place stuff. That's what it all boils down to. So in my case, I tried to pick a standard template, which I kind of mentioned earlier, but I think it's 8 cores, even though I have way more cores than that. I say 8 threads or 8 cores per VM. I say 8 gigs of RAM. And then for me, I just say 60 gigs of hard drive space. So all of my nodes, every single one of my nodes have that same exact thing. So I never have to, what was this node or how many CPU or how much RAM did I give this node? No, they're exactly the same. And I try to model it as if I was buying from the cloud, and the cloud would have a standard template that you would choose from. And so anyways, and then the nice part is if you're using Rancher will tell you right when you go to the dashboard for your cluster, that here's how many nodes your cluster can facilitate, or nodes. Here's how many pods your cluster can facilitate based on the resources that you have. And so I'm sorry if that was a lot of rambling. Hopefully I answered your questions. I'm Bambouji. Let me know. HomeLab New. It's more understanding how storage works. What's all this about persistent volumes? Yeah, so that's a big topic. I'll try to summarize it really quick. So in Kubernetes, you might have pods that can run anywhere. So in that cluster idea we were just talking about, you could have 3 nodes, right? You have 3 servers, right? And you tell Kubernetes to go and install some kube control, apply this service. Kubernetes is just going to randomly find a node that I'm sure there's an algorithm and how it determines, but it's going to find to you what may seem a random node to put that pod on. So it might drop it on server 2, not server 1 or 3, but server 2. And so if that pod is stateful, so a lot of pods that a lot of workloads that you run are probably stateless. An easy way to know is like, do you map a volume? If you don't map a volume, I mean, I won't get into like daemon sets and all that stuff, but anyways, I'm just gonna totally be naive about it. But if you're not mapping volumes, arguably it might be stateless, right? It doesn't need any state when it starts up. It doesn't need to preserve any state when it shuts down. You can think of this like if you run a Discord bot. It doesn't need any state. It just starts up, it does its thing. When it shuts down, it shuts down. And so you could spin that up on any one of those nodes because it doesn't need to read anything from the disk. Well, some services need to persist some disk. Like if you have something that has /config or /data or you need to preserve something on disk, right? And so this is where persistent volume claims come in. So Kubernetes has a way to provision storage to pods that are requesting it. And so you have storage classes, and you can choose and configure storage classes within Rancher or within Kubernetes and provision them that way. And so you can choose NFS, you can choose, I mean, the list goes on and on and on of storage classes. I choose Longhorn. And so basically what that gives me is, what that says is, hey, when any pod requests storage, I'm going to provision a volume to them. So I'm going to, and I do this in Longhorn, I say, hey, this pod I know is stateful. I know it needs to write to disk. I know when it starts up somewhere else, it also needs to be able to read from that disk and write from that disk. And so I provision storage to those pods, or to that service. And so I say ahead of time and say, yep, you get a persistent volume claim. Hey, I'm gonna make something. We'll just say LibreSpeed like we did today. LibreSpeed, you have a /config folder. Yep, you get a persistent volume. I know you need to read or write from disk. I'm gonna give you 100 megs of disk space. It probably doesn't need much. 100 megs of disk space, I'm being cheap. And when you mount that disk space, you're gonna mount it to /config. So now that pod, when he spins up, he says, hey, who's my storage class? Oh, my storage class is Longhorn. Oh, hey, Longhorn, give me a persistent volume for me that's dedicated to me, and give me something with whatever, read, write, access. And so Longhorn, or your persistent volume system storage class, says, here you go, here's your volume. And then so he's happy. So he can write, he can read, he can do everything he wants. And if you're doing single node, single agent, most of the time you've been bind mounting to disk. So you're basically saying, hey, let me use your disk space on this server, which works in a single node, single agent scenario, because there aren't anywhere else, there isn't anywhere else to spin up. But that idea breaks down once you go beyond one. Because now if you're saying, hey, mount to this node, well, now you're on a pod on server 3. Server 3 may not have the same path or data on its disk that too had. And so that's where persistent volumes come in. And it's basically saying, hey, when you mount this pod wherever you are, mount it to this location. Don't mount it on disk to any of these servers. Mount it either NFS over the network, mount it in Longhorn, mount it however you want. Use your own storage system, but it's somewhere that all of those nodes can contact and communicate with, so that they can get the volume that they had when they shut down. So anyways, that's a really long explanation. I hope that's helpful. I always all my videos, I kind of gloss over it. I think in my latest one today is I spent more than 3 seconds talking about it, because it's a huge topic, and I know that a lot of people, not that I don't think that it isn't important, but sometimes it exceeds the scope of configuring it for the service. And so a lot of time in a single node, single agent scenario, non-HA way, one node, one server, one everything, the quick and easy way is to bind mount from the node. But if you ever move beyond 2, let's just say that idea doesn't scale unless you're going to set up that path on all of those servers and then synchronize that data across all of the servers. And if you're putting that much effort and architecture into doing that, you should probably just pick a real persistent volume or a storage class. First easy pick is NFS. It's really easy. I think it's 2 lines of commands to run in 1 YAML file. And I think some dependencies too. And by doing that, then you can have an NFS volume. I think it's NFS client provisioner is the storage class. And then if you run that on all of your nodes, if you install the dependencies on all your nodes and then run a kube control command to provision the NFS client provisioner, then you'll have a new storage class called NFS. And then once you have a new storage class of NFS, all of your pods can now read and write to an NFS location, which is really awesome, because then you can have any of your pods spin up and have their data no matter where they are in the cluster. And that's kind of persistent volumes as a whole. It's a deep topic. It's a really deep topic, and I can't tell you everything about it. I can just tell you what I know and how I use it in the time that we have. So anyways, Homeland New, hopes that helped, man. Ping me in Discord. I can send you links. NFS is a great first step. If you want something a little more complicated and a little more robust, Longhorn is a fantastic option. But I will say that NFS makes it really easy, because you can explore the NFS share and go and modify files if you want. You can with Longhorn, but it's a different concept. You have to use kube control copy, kube control exec, sometimes you have to mount pods to Longhorn prior to spinning up your pods because you need access to that volume ahead of time to modify files. It's a little more complicated and it takes a little more planning, but at the same time, it's a lot. It's really robust. Not that the NFS one isn't, but if you think about it, if you have one NFS share on your home network, and say it's TrueNAS, say it's not, and you reboot that server, now all your pods lose all of their volume, their persistent volume claim goes away. And then Kubernetes will just be freaking out for a while until it comes back up. So that's kind of where I think, something like Longhorn is kind of the next evolution of something like that. It's because it keeps those volumes in Kubernetes itself and replicates it everywhere. I could talk about it all day because it's super interesting to me, and I don't know everything about it. But the more I learn about it, I keep learning about all of these, evolutions and what's the good first step. Hey, real quick, Mr. Paul Black. Hey, thanks for the sub Prime. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. But this whole entire, it's an evolution or a journey for most people. And so a single node Docker install of Rancher might be your first evolution. And then you might just say, you know what? I kind of like more than one server to run my services, just in case I need to update one and reboot it, And then that's an evolution there. And, so there's all these evolutions. And so I'm here with you going through some of these evolutions too, Most of the time you get persistent volume. Like this isn't something you have to think about in the cloud. They have solutions for you. Google, Azure, AWS, whoever's running Kubernetes for you has a solution for you. They're going to sell you disk space, They're going to sell you disk space, so they better have a solution. Well, at home or not in the cloud or bare metal Kubernetes or wherever you're running Kubernetes that's not a cloud provider, you get to pick your own solution. And so, it's at first it's kind of complicated, and you might not even know the solutions that are out there. But those are two that I use. So, anyways, I'm going on and on and on about persistent volume claims, but I think they're really awesome, and you'll need them if you want to scale more than one node, and you have a stateful application that needs to read or write from disk. So yeah, awesome. Yeah, great question. And also figuring out how to expose services on specific network interfaces. I haven't done that. It's good to know. I haven't done that. I totally see the use case for it. I have to look into it. Luke and Tross, in K3S deployment video was said that you need at least 2 servers and 2 agents. Yeah. Okay, you're replying to Rexroof. CG Bass Player, another project I got going is making a small web app that shows which Minecraft servers I have online. I like it. I'll be better than updating a Discord message every time I change something. It'll be better than updating a Discord message every time I change something. I like it. So a status page for your Minecraft servers. I love it. HomeLab New, can anyone recommend a Linux server backup tools? Restic works great for me. Like home directories on personal machines, but I'm wondering if there's a better solution. Yeah, let me know when you find it. Because mine's totally stitched together and it's not great. Rexroof, for CPU memory, there are resources request limits. Oh yeah, you're following up to. Yeah, I like it. You have the condensed version of my babble about how resource pools and resources work in Kubernetes. Thank you so much for that, Rexroof. Rexroof, interesting. I've used. Oh yeah, this is the same thread. Got to get out of these threads. I apologize. Jacket Bandcast, Technotem, how are you configuring your Acme? Yeah, great question. Let me grab a drink real quick because my throat is kind of dry. So how am I configuring my Acme? So I use Traffic as my reverse proxy. We were talking about reverse proxies earlier, and so I use Traffic as my reverse proxy to all of my services. And then we did talk a little bit about terminating SSL there. That on a reverse proxy, it's a good place to do it because you have this one point, this endpoint where your web requests are going to come in, and so. Through that, I then configure Acme. So Acme is the technical term, I think, or the for Let's Encrypt. So that's exactly what I do. So I've been doing that for a while. I used to use Certbot for a while, and I had, many instances of certbot running as sidecars on some of my Docker containers to give them certificates there. But then I switched to a reverse proxy. This was a while ago because I wanted, all the things that a reverse proxy gives me, but also to be able to terminate my SSL in one place, and then also have one place to configure my SSL configuration for Acme, for Let's Encrypt. And so that's what I do. Now I'm on Traffic 2. It's a little complex, but it's actually pretty awesome once you get it going. At the end of the day, I'm not using any feature in Traffic 2 that I wasn't getting in Traffic 1. Not saying that they're not there. I'm just not using it yet. And so part of that is fetching and renewing my SSL certificates. And so my certificates, I don't know, I have 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 domains. I don't know how many domains I own. A lot. More than most people. More than most individuals at home, I should say that. So I have all of them. And so as part of Traffic, Traffic actually configures Let's Encrypt, configures Acme to get my certificates if it doesn't have them, and then to add them to that load balancer or that reverse proxy, and then also to renew them over time if they need to be renewed. And it's been working pretty good. And actually this time around, I finally configured wildcards because it's been an evolution for Let's Encrypt to start supporting wildcards. I know they support it for a while, but I wasn't just like, I'm gonna redo all of my my traffic config just to get wildcards, which I probably should have looking back, but I wasn't adding any subdomains at the time. But long story short, now with my new infrastructure, I do have wildcard certs for my 8 or 9 domains. I don't know how many I own. and they're all terminated to Traffic reverse proxy, and Traffic reverse proxy has configuration to get Acme configured to get Let's Encrypt certificates. That's hopefully you followed that rabbit hole. Anyways, long story short, get it through Traffic. 5-angle. Curious is if anyone has experience with DDWRT x86, interesting, running something else on Proxmox. Tim, I know you went with the Dream Machine, but we'd love to get your opinion. For those of us who want to stick with software virtualized, you've tried nearly all of them, so we value your experience. Hey, 5-angle, appreciate it. I will say that I've never tried DDWRT x86. I mean, mine was always running on an old, ARM, I assume, was inside of my Linksys and Cisco routers. So I've never done anything with x86. I will say that the favorite amongst most is pfSense, and I'm sure DDWRT is a fine product. I mean, it works fantastic on my hardware routers, consumer hardware routers. But I think most people, and if they're gonna virtualize it, they end up going with pfSense. And that's what I went with for a long time. So I would recommend that. You're gonna take on more complexity than DDWRT. Maybe it's more than you want to take on, but pfSense, I mean, you can't really, if you want the best of the best of open source and you want to be able to virtualize it, and you want a really good, robust router, I mean, pfSense is gonna be your best bet. Like I said, I've run a ton of them. I haven't run the x86 one. As soon as you said that, I was like, oh, interesting. But I've done Entangle, I've done Smoothwall, IPCOP. I can't even name all the ones I've done. I've even done one that were inside of servers, all-in-ones, Clark Connect. I think Clark Connect was the name of some other all-in-one server before it became what it is today. I don't even think it's called Clark Connect anymore. But I love the name though. Anyways, I would say go pfSense. I say you can't go wrong. There's going to be a learning curve if you've never done it, but there's tons of documentation, and there's tons of people who are in our Discord who do that today. Maybe they don't virtualize it, maybe they do. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter if you virtualize it or not, because the interface and everything's going to be the same. So yeah, give it a shot. Let me know. Oh, OpenSense, yeah, absolutely. It's another alternative. So I think a fork from pfSense. Yeah, for sure. Lucan Kratos, maybe so. The purpose of servers can be load balancing, for example. Thanks, Rex Roof. Yeah, load balancing too, I think is another use case for it. I think you were talking about reverse proxies. Um, Somoni, do you use a treadmill under your desk? No, I don't. I have done that before. A company I worked at actually had that. They were ones you could book through Outlook. It was cool because it was, I mean, kind of cool, but it was a treadmill with a desk attached to it, and I've done it before. It's kind of hard to get used to at first, and you gotta kind of you gotta like reserve certain tasks for it. Because as you're walking, it's great for reading email. It's great for doing a lot of the, kind of more mundane, less intensely focused stuff. Great for, administration, UI, stuff like that. But when it came to writing code, it was just kind of weird. I don't know. So I couldn't really wrap my head around like actually focusing on writing code while still walking on a treadmill and typing. So I don't personally, I've done it before. Like I said, the company I worked for had them, and it was pretty cool. We booked them through Outlook, and I would usually book them, I think, during lunch because I ate lunch at a weird time. So I found that was the time that was always open because everyone else eats lunch at a normal time except for me. And so I would book them then, and I used to do it an hour a day. Definitely cool, but I don't have one here. Maybe next office. I like that though. Genorian, I have never had any issues with it getting updates far more often than my pfSense installs. All right, you guys are talking about OpenSense. Yeah, and so another great option. I'm not saying one's better than the other. People have different reasons to use different things, and those two are very, very similar and have different, I think, missions too. Rex Roof, is that some Keycloak? Is that the same Keycloak used for authentication? Yeah, it was. Zoid, hey man, just want to say thanks for help getting K3S clusters up in your Discord. Nice, yeah. Got everything set back up. Nice, man. You totally self-starter. So I hope it's running well. I know we talked about it. It was like 2 nights ago, I think, where I was like, here's kind of the way you want to go if you're going to do it. And I think you were switching from going, from Rancher UI pod installs to actually using kube control and using your services, creating your services in YAML and deploying them that way. Exactly what I was talking about at the end of my last video, and that's kind of why I put that in there, because I think it's a good skill to learn. If you start with Rancher and you figure out the UI and you're like, this is great, but how to repeat it? And I don't want to click a bunch of buttons. Deploying your services with using kube control and a YAML file is a great way to go. And so Zoid, I think that's what you've been working on. So that's awesome that you got it all going. Yeah, congratulations. Next vinyl on Proxmox, is there an easy, straightforward way to get the console to default to 16:9 orientation? I don't know. To be honest, and I think you're talking about the VNC console, the web VNC console that's built in. To be honest, I never use it. I actually try to avoid it because when I switch between all my virtual machines, it takes so long. Like it's kind of distracting how long it takes to come up. So anyways, I don't know the answer to that. I don't use it because I remote into my stuff through SSH most of the time. If it's Windows, then RDP. So I don't know the answer to that. I'm sure there's a way to. T. Groutman, code generation is all parsing string replacements. Yeah, okay. I've never done it. I've seen a lot of tools that'll do it for you, but interesting to know. Anyone know whether, so this is Obsidian View, sudo. Anyone know whether booting Pies off the PXE works okay? Heard it's slow. It just depends. I think it's going to depend on, your network and your disk speed. Or no, it's going to be writing it to RAM. So I haven't personally. There are people in Discord, I've heard about it. 5-angle, that's good to hear. I'm just getting pfSense pulled down, so maybe just need to do OpenSense instead. Both great options. The drama between the two teams rubbed me wrong either way, yeah. But if security updates come faster with OpenSense, that's more important to me. Thanks again. Yeah, for sure. Rex Roof, I wish I had Google Nest would release new APIs. I didn't look into detail about which one they have released. I'm just happy that Home Assistant now has a real way to connect to Google Nest outside of the kind of gap solution they had in place as soon as Nest took away the Works with Nest program. Tronan, you got great content, Tim. It's awesome that you stream as well. I have 3 physical machines, 2x with a decent CPUs for real workloads and one for just running FreeNAS. Hey, I like it. I struggle a bit since the video on YouTube skips a couple of steps, as reverse proxy should spin up Ubuntu VM with Nginx. Isn't that really a waste of RAM CPU? Really hope you get it all figured out. You can make a tutorial start to finish. It's easier for noobs stuck with Docker and Portainer. Yeah, and so yeah, sorry, I got my mint just plastered. Let me grab a drink. Hey, so Tronan, yeah, I did kind of go over. So I did go over the load balancer piece relatively quickly with very little detail, only because I'm probably making excuses, and I don't mean to do that. Just explaining why. Because I wasn't sure if people were going to actually spin up a load balancer, they were going to use round robin DNS, or they're going to use some other way to just make sure that that endpoint is available. And so for me, I have, like I said, I have a machine that runs plain old Docker containers, and you know, one of the workloads it runs is Nginx, and that's where I have my load balancer for the things outside of Kubernetes that need to get into Kubernetes, or for the things in Kubernetes that need to talk with something else in my network, not for the ingress or the ingress controller into Kubernetes itself. I know it's confusing. Anyways, a really, really simple way in that I have it set up is I just have Docker running on one machine. That machine's doing other things too. Hey, LOL Palmy. LOL Palmy, thanks for the sub. Thank you, really appreciate it. Thank you. So I have Nginx running on one machine. That Nginx has a config, and that's being my load balancer. That's my load balancer for Kubernetes. So my Kubernetes API stuff going in. It's also my load balancer for my fixed registration address for my K3S nodes, so they know how to communicate back and know who's alive. And then in the beginning, it was my load balancer for Rancher as well. So yeah, you know, is it kind of a waste of resources? Maybe the first time, but you know, as you add more and more things to it, it becomes pretty important. And so I didn't use a physical machine to install Nginx and do all of that. I used or virtual machine. I used a virtual machine to then get Docker on it, so then I could do Docker with Nginx and get it going that way. And then, you know, it becomes really critical after you get it going, because that's the way that things communicate in and out of, depending on which side of that load balancer you're on, it's pretty critical. So yeah, ping me in Discord. I mean, my config is exactly in that documentation. The only tweak to there is say, hey, I have Nginx running in Docker, and then I have a bind mount to that config file, which is that same exact config file you see in the documentation with some additional stuff added on. But you know, I combined the three of those services in one load balancer, as you probably will too. And then I moved some stuff around later, because eventually I moved Rancher's, endpoint or its load balancer to traffic, but that gets pretty complicated really quick. Actually, they have new APIs. You can access them yourself. Yeah, they do. You have to go through GCP, and I think you're talking about Google Nest APIs. So yeah, you have to basically apply to be a Google developer. It's so silly, but I'm sure this is just an evolution for them, right? Because most of the time it's developers that want to get stuff out of their API. I mean, arguably you got to do the same thing with YouTube now, right? If you want to get anything out of the YouTube API, you got to go through the same path. And I think Google's just consolidating their entry point to all of their services to go through there. I mean, if you're not using one of their UIs, right? If you're a developer that wants to integrate with Google stuff, you got to go through their endpoints to do it. T. Groutman. My code generation pipeline starts by reading the C++ DLL header file and grabbing all the comments and methods, formats them into nice, sorts all the methods, and then gets started and generates the same methods for a different language. It's all string replacement that changes the types from syntax to a source language to a target language. It's advanced enough to generate some implementation, keeps my APIs in sync across languages for platforms like PC and Xbox. I like it. So instead of using something cross-platform, you're just writing the code in one language and you're making it cross-platform yourself with code generation tools. Interesting. That's super interesting, man. So you wrote tools to do that yourself. That's cool. Rex Roof, that's great to hear about Google Nest. I have an Arduino that was trying to make it turn on the furnace fan when we were burning a fire in the stove. Yeah. It's open up now. And if you look at any of Home Assistant's documentation, just go to Home Assistant documentation, like, how do I configure a Nest thermostat? Well, they'll walk you through actually how to set up becoming a developer on Google. There's a $5 fee too. I should throw that in there too. Google, whatever. But anyways, I think that's just like their little way to stop people from, but it's $5. Anyways, but yeah, it's opened up now. At least I don't know what APIs they support, but enough for most people to use Nest and other Nest devices. Hey, WearTag. Hey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Luke and Kratos. Have you heard about Bidmorton? I have. I'm sure you did. It's a password manager that can be self-hosted. Maybe an idea for a new video. Yeah. I've heard about it. I've looked at it. I think about it. The only problem is I already use an existing password manager with the company I work for and with other people. And so having two password managers doesn't sound fun to me. Like if it were just me, or if it were me and my wife, I'd do it in a heartbeat. But it kind of stinks that where we both have, a use case for another password manager that's out there and needs to share it. And I don't want to have two password managers on my browser, on my phone, and everywhere else. And anyways, long story short, if I got to choose from the beginning and dictate that to everyone and say, no, you must use my, password manager, if I would have just been first, and I would have beat people there. But yeah, it looks awesome. I love what they're doing. I love how open it is. I love that it's open source, and that they get their software evaluated by the whole entire world pretty much, instead of like some private third-party company like some others do. So I think that's awesome. I think it's really awesome. I would love to. Who knows? Maybe in the future, if I'm not using a password manager somewhere else, I'll take another look at it. But those are trade-offs sometimes. Like, definitely don't want to run two password managers. I couldn't even. Yeah. Imagine two things asking you to save a password every time you saved a password, or prompting you to enter a password every time. I don't know. Maybe they've solved that. But then I would have to block and allow a lot of sites to say, nope, this password manager gets this site, this password manager gets that site. And then I'm rambling, but then I have a much larger footprint on my password than I do now. Anyways, I know about it. Looks awesome. I'd love to. I just need some people to switch to it first, because I have zero say in that. T. Groutman, I have it working just source. I'm not doing transcoding with compiled instructions or bytecode or anything like that. That is super awesome, man. 5 angle. I had one of those arrays you have, Tim. It was a beast in power use. I totally agree. That's why, I said I was like, looking for, alternatives if they are out there. Even 12 disk arrays or something that has 12 can take 12 drives, hot swappable. And I do want an array too. I don't want a full-fledged, motherboard and CPU in there. I don't want it to be, basically a server that can handle, that has 12 bays. I would like it to be, unless I can find something super low power. But I would love for it to just be another shelf, basically. CJ Bass Player, not really related to tech, but do you know how do you like the Rode Pod mic? No, totally fine. Comes up a lot. As far as your peaks, look into turning up your compression ratio and maybe makeup gain as well. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I had everything tweaked. I don't know what happened. I definitely need to look at it again. And I have profiles. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 profiles that I have for my mic for all the different things I need to do. And so that's nothing against this mic at all, because this mic is like fantastic. Like, I couldn't have asked for a better microphone. So I love it. I love this microphone. It works great. It's like $99. Like, you can't beat that. Yes, you do need phantom power to it. So you're going to need something to supply phantom power to it, because it, takes some additional power to get the sound out of it. And then, I have Go XLR, but name whatever. You could have Cloud Lifter or something else attached to it to get phantom power that way. So I love it. Yeah, and thanks for the tips on the stuff. I messed up one of my profiles, got to figure out what it is, and you just need to spend like 10 minutes dedicated to getting back to where it was and then saving that profile again and go XLR and saying, do not touch this. Because I have a feeling that when I switched to recording, I have a shotgun mic here. I switched to recording. I have a feeling that I tweaked those settings, but saved it to this profile. And then every time I manually go and change it and I don't save it because I'm like, I need to really figure this out. Long story short, love my pod mic. How about that? Yeah, it's great. It's great. If you want to check it out, I think I have links below, but just go to Amazon. I got mine at Guitar Center. They sell it everywhere now. It's really hard to find at first. But 99 bucks, you can't beat it. I don't think so. I don't think you can. For a dynamic microphone. Just need obviously XLR, and you'll need phantom power to the XLR. Let's see here, Rex Roof. I feel like Docker Compose or Kubernetes are the option. Docker Swarm doesn't have much community around it. Yeah. I can't say much about it, but I think it was great at first, and I'm sure there are people who use it, but man, there's a huge community around Kubernetes for sure. 5-angle, I ended up swapping 24-port LSI card and reformatting. God, so long. And all the NetApp tries from 520 to 512. I worked for Broadcom prior to the pandemic, so I had plenty of cards laying around. Nice. Yeah, I don't even, I'm be completely honest, I've seen a lot of people talk about 520 and 512 sector drives for my disk shelf. I'm just like, I honestly didn't put enough time or effort into it. I'm just like crossing my fingers, like hopefully my stuff works, and it's been pretty solid so far. Let's see here. Gonna get caught up. Zatrek. Hey, just started following YouTube and learn Docker. I'm learning a lot. Hey, I'm glad you're learning. That is awesome for sure. Let's see. Dex Vinyl. I think I skipped this one. All you need to do is set the mixer at a good level for the mic and mixer, and then throw a limiter on audio feed in OBS. Yeah, I know. I like I said, I played with my settings and I didn't play with them back. Sorry, getting caught up. Jack Bandcast. At work, we move a lot of our services to source their manifest from JSONnet, deploying via Argo CD. Okay, awesome. I've been immersed for the past 10 months because JSONnet is now much easier to work with. Happy to share links and articles, share if anyone's interested. Yeah, that sounds interesting for sure. Nemesis. Thanks for your Nemesis 0222. Hey, thanks for your videos. Actually in the process of setting up Rancher server right now while watching one of your videos. Hey, awesome. And I decided to check if you were online. Glad if I did. Hey, welcome. If you have any problems, let me know. I've done it a few times, and there are lots of people in our community that understand this a ton too. So let us know for sure. Hey, there you go. Thanks. PC Geek, thanks for the Discord invite. Thank you. TBS Backer, already using Docker Compose for some stacks, so would need to transfer them when using Kubernetes, which seems doable. Maybe then, just as Tim said, Kate's might be better at seeing from a job perspective. Hey, real quick, Cracks, thanks for the follow, appreciate it. And Modorzer, sub, thanks for the sub, appreciate it so much. Thank you, really appreciate it. Thanks for the support. Yeah, so going back to I'm not trying to dictate architecture to you or say, a swarm is anything other than what it is and what it does. I'm not trying to do that. I just try to keep an open mind and think about, the skill set that maybe I can apply to my current job or to jobs in the future. And when I think about, Swarm versus Kubernetes, it's absolutely going to be Kubernetes. Does that mean you have to do it at home? Absolutely not. If you already know Kubernetes and want to learn Swarm, absolutely go for it. But like me, I just think about, am I going to learn something at home that I might be able to apply it at work? Yeah, for sure I am. I might bring in a different perspective at work, or might understand that this thing exists when someone mentions it in a meeting. So obviously I know it exists, but I'm just saying if you're new to it, I think those are some of the pros. It's going to come with a lot of big learning curve. And so anyways, going back to what you were saying about Compose and changing from Compose stacks to Kubernetes, You're gonna have to think about things a little bit different. Service discovery works a little bit different. You can't, I don't want to say you can't, but in Compose, you're able to describe a whole entire stack and say go and install. In Kubernetes, it's not going to be that easy or that obvious. So, if you're used to in Compose being able to say, hey, this front end with this back end and this database, go and spin up this stack. In Kubernetes, it might be a little bit different. So just keep in mind that, and it's good to kind of break those up and think about those three things individually, or maybe it's not. But you're going to have to learn a little bit about how service discovery works in Kubernetes, and maybe not even learn, just understand that it exists. And if you want to reference something internally, within Kubernetes, you're going to have to use create a service in a deployment, and then that's how you refer to that service, which is what you just defined by name. But anyways, I think it's a good journey. I think it's good. It's a good path. Actually, the greatest thing about Docker is the ecosystem and tools around it for building and deploying software. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's how I got into Docker to begin with, was building custom code. And that's how I got into Kubernetes, was building custom code, because I'm a software developer. And there came a point in time where they were like, no, you got to put your code in a Docker container. And I was like, what? Do what? It's kind of how it was. And, that responsibility then shifted to me, to where, if I wanted CI, which I did, I wanted CD, which I did, that meant I had to put my code in Docker containers. And I was like, okay, let's do this. Like, if you're giving me an easy way to build and test my code on some other machine, 100% let's do this. And so, I totally agree with that. That's an entry point for a lot of people is software development. And so I know that if you're not into software development and you're doing this at home, you can be thinking like, why all this when we can do virtual machines and, I can spin it up really easy. And I think a lot of it stems from that. It's just getting, repeatable things to happen in other environments, and all the things that come along with it too, and registries and container registries and, all that cool stuff. But anyways, that was my entry point. I understand that that's not an entry point for a lot of people. I wouldn't even say it's an entry point. That was my gateway. Like thou shall not pass. If I wanted my stuff to build in our CI system, when moving to the new CI system, it was all Docker based. So I had very little choice. It was Drone, and Drone's a fantastic CI system, open source, that you can self-host too. And so I love Drone. It's almost exactly like GitHub, very similar to Circle CI. I'm sure Jenkins too has a lot of this stuff too. But yeah, that was my entry point. Didn't have a choice, but I was excited to learn about it. It was tough at first, people walking me through like, oh, here's how you build a Docker container locally on your own machine. I'm like, I have no idea what's going on. Like, you know what I mean? And go from writing code to writing Docker files and installing Docker and building Docker and looking at images and hashes and tagging it. It takes time. But if you're not a software developer, then, those are things you might not have to even think about. And so for you, it might be just, okay, how do I pull this out of a registry and use it in my environment? Use it, in Kubernetes. And for me as a software developer is, how do I build my code, put it inside of a container, build an image, put that image in a registry, and then during CI, pull that out. So it was everything after that too. So I think that kind of gave me a decent understanding of how Docker can be used and how it should be applied is being a software developer. Because I had to work with it on both ends, putting code inside of images, building them and putting them in registries. And then in Kubernetes and in CI, pulling them out, running it and testing it. And then I should say that was during CI. And then in Kubernetes is basically saying, Kubernetes go, like pull this new image and put it in place. So yeah, there's lots of entry points, I will say. Hey, Durable, this one's tough to say. I'll go with Derby Ladgende. I'm sorry, I totally butchered that name. Hey, thanks for the follow, appreciate it. Let's see, I configured Portainer too, but when you set up Pi-hole, it has issues with port, could not set port 53. DNS is a tough one to run inside of Kubernetes, I'll say. Or it's pretty easy to run inside of Docker if you use, host-based networking and stuff like that. But then to get to get things to route to UDP 53 is kind of tough. So that's a tough one. I haven't done it in Portainer 2. Speaking of, I think Portainer just had an update yesterday, a couple days ago. It's their first update to Portainer 2 since Portainer's been released. I need to do it. I saw it in the UI the other day. I was like, I should probably do it. A lot of bug fixes, it looks like. But that's a tough one. I know that Zatrek, there are people in our community who have done it in Kubernetes, and I'm sure it's very similar if you're using Portainer 2 with Kubernetes. If you're just using Portainer 2 and doing Docker, then it might be pretty easy. It's as easy as either exposing that port 53 or using host-based networking. Probably shouldn't do that if you're doing Kubernetes. There are other ways to do that, but let me know. TBS Backer. Any chance you're running Ubuntu 2004? If so, systemd resolved. Oh yeah. There you go. Thank you. I forgot that one was in my video too, for sure. About getting your resolve.conf set up properly. That one was a tough one. I would just say, man, hold Pi-hole off for one of the last ones if you're gonna make the jump to Docker or to Kubernetes or Portainer or Rancher or anything like that. Make sure Pi-hole's like one of the last ones. Like get some quick wins in there first. Like do some easy ones, easier ones I'd say, because that one takes some configuration too, for sure, to get working. I need to find a better way to do it too. I'm sure there are better ways now with different tools. Because the only downside to that is if you do that on one machine, you might have to do it on all your nodes. And if you're running in a cluster, that's not scalable. Unless you're using something like Ansible and then you add that to that role every time. Yeah, it's tough. Hey, Zantrek, thanks for the sub. Really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Let's see here. Included null. WD 5400 RPM Seagates are often cheaper shucked than 7200. Oh, we're getting in the shuck conversation. All right. Included null. 10 plus terabytes. Hey, Giovanni Nacho. I'm gonna go with that. Hey Nacho, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. Thank you. Included null. 10 terabytes plus Seagate's externals will usually have either Exos or Iron Wolf inside, or less often a Barracuda Pro. Yeah, good to know. Good to know what's inside of those for sure. Whole lot of shucking going on. Let's see here. I'm gonna get caught up. Rainbow Shaggy, hello. I found you today when I was looking for some video about Rancher in a Minecraft server. I was messing with Rancher about a year ago, but I forgot everything. That's all right. So I need to dive into it again, or go deep into it again. I think it'd be good to use when you run a Minecraft server for friends, so they can have some kind of administration, like run pause when something happens. Show console, upload plugins with FTP. So thank you for the tutorials you're doing. Really helpful. Thank you. Hey, Rainbow Shaggy, thanks so much. Thanks for stopping in and thanks for that compliment. I appreciate it. And I hope you figure it all out again. Yeah, it's I think things like Minecraft are fantastic to run in something like Kubernetes. I'll even just say Docker, because managing, making sure that process stays up, mapping all that data, backing up all that data, it just makes it super easy. Even upgrades are super easy with Docker, or Rancher or whatever, Kubernetes, containerized Minecraft, I think is the way to go for sure. But thanks for stopping in for sure. Zatrek, no, it's cluster that have no constraints, not Pi-hole. Sorry, not tracking on that one. Midnight Champions, currently I'm learning HTML and Java to build a website to track certain things using an API. I'm very new to APIs in Java. Awesome. Awesome. So let me think. You're learning HTML and Java to build a website to track certain things using an API. I'm very new. Yeah, there's a lot going on in there, and there's a lot to learn. So you got front end stuff, and then you got back end stuff, services or middle tier stuff. And then you've got back-end stuff like data, how do you persist all that data, Midnight Champion. So a lot to learn there for sure. If you're doing Java, I think Spring Boot is one that a lot of people choose. I've done some Java, but it was more Android stuff. Done some Kotlin too, Android stuff. But yeah, lots to learn there. I would say, there are tons of tools for the job. And it sounds pretty exciting. You got a lot to learn. I'm excited for you. Wish I could help more. I haven't, most of my Java experience is Android, which arguably can be transferred anywhere, but not some of the libraries that you use. But Spring Boot seems to be pretty popular with people, for sure, for spinning up APIs. But you got a lot on your plate. Yeah, front end, back end, and then data, for sure. I hope your API goes well. Thanks for stopping in. HTML and Java, I think you mean JavaScript. Yeah, that would explain a lot, because I was like, oh my gosh, there's a lot going on there. Cyborg, thanks for the clarification. That makes a ton more sense. So if it's HTML and JavaScript, all right. Now you're in my area. Yeah, so a lot less to learn. I'll say that. So if you're HTML and JavaScript, so you're building a front end, and you need to communicate with APIs, and you're probably going to do that over REST, and it'll probably be JSON. So you have a ton of options there. You have like React, Angular, you name it. There are a lot of front ends out there to do that. I mean, at the end of the day, you're going to need to write or use a REST client, or a client that speaks HTTP to speak to services. And so, there are tons of APIs out there. I'm not sure what you're trying to accomplish. So that cuts like your workload in a third, because I thought you were saying you had to do some HTML and Java. So I assumed you just meant front end, back end, and then data stuff as well. So not as complicated as I originally thought it was, but sounds pretty awesome. I'm excited for you. I'm a huge fan of React. I know that there are other options. Angular's a good one. Vue's a good one. You name it. There are tons of front ends out there. I think with Angular and Vue, you're going to get a little more prescriptive ways to do it. It's going to come with the clients that I'm talking about. Whereas on React, it's a little less prescriptive, because it's just a Vue library. It's a rendering and a Vue library, and so you get to pick and choose your client, your HTTP client. I typically, either pick Fetch or Axios. Usually Axios, because Fetch is quarter baked and doesn't work the same way, and so you got to add tons of stuff and yeah, tons of. Anyways, I won't go on that tangent, but it sounds awesome. Hope it works out for you. CG bass player. Mackie's what I have to use. My girlfriend's father runs a super tiny church, so I get voluntold to do sound for all the holidays. All right, so for your sound, interesting. I haven't heard of it. Ruz Mari. Should I wait for MacBook Pro 16 with the M1 chip, or just go buy the latest MacBook Pro for development? I'd say wait. I wait. I don't know. Maybe that's just me, because you don't want to be the last. You don't want to be on the last one that's on Intel. I mean, I don't know. I mean, the reviews for the MacBooks with the M1 chip have been stellar. So I wouldn't expect that the MacBook Pros to be any different than stellar. And even if they're a little less than stellar, they're probably a little more efficient in battery life and performance than what you have now. Because I have two models ago. I won't go into that tangent. I'm still upset with Apple about releasing 2 MacBook Pros in 1 year. Who would have thunk it? Not me, and not the rest of the world. Because I made that choice early on. I missed out on the last one that they released, which had an escape key. Anyways, I'm not bitter or anything. But I would say wait. If you can wait. I would. And if you can wait, and then wait until it's released for review, do that too. Because then you have options. Then you're like, okay, I'm going to get the last Intel one, or I don't know if it'll be the last Intel one. I'm making assumptions. But I'm going to get an Intel one for a little bit less cost than the M1, or I'm going to get the M1 one for whatever price they put on it, but it's the latest and greatest. But that's what I go for. I go after that. Then if you're going into use market, then you might find people who are going to jump ship and say, yeah, I just bought whatever. I have the MacBook Pro, whatever, 2019 or 2021. I want the M1, and the market might be then flooded. The aftermarket might be flooded with used ones. So anyways, a lot of options there. I would say if you can wait. That's my, especially for, a MacBook Pro. Those are ones, that you need to be performant. I mean, all of them you want to, right? But most of the MacBook Pros are specialized to do a specialized task. For me, it's software development for work. And so it needs to perform. And if it doesn't perform, basically wasting money. So I'd wait to see. That's just me. Cyborg, I want to set up Grafana dashboard. Should I be going with InfluxDB or Prometheus, or are there better alternatives? I can't think of two better alternatives than InfluxDB or Prometheus. I don't know which one. I don't know what the best choice is gonna be for you. I've done Prometheus stuff before. I'm a little more familiar with that than just plain old Influx, and I won't say Influx. But I think those are going to be your two choices, for sure. Andy, 1984. Hey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. I think that's Andy. Yeah, my eyes are starting to fail me. But yeah, between those two, I would say evaluate them both. I mean, Prometheus is one that I'm familiar with. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to prescribe without knowing your exact use case. I know you just want to set up Grafana dashboards, and I don't want to say just because, you know, they're pretty important. But Prometheus has worked good for me in the past. Jack Bancast. It depends on what you want to develop. How urgent are your need for the machine? All right, you guys are asking the good questions. I like it. Thunderstorm, or just use Ubuntu server. I don't know what the response. I wouldn't put anything. I wouldn't put anything prod on it. I would use Oracle if that was needed, or just use Ubuntu server. Not sure what that's in response to. Nemesis, TechnoTim, if you have a single host with multiple VMs, what operating system would you recommend? Ubuntu with or without K3S, K3OS? What's your take on container-specific operating system? Yeah, this is a great question. Let me grab a drink because there's a lot to say. So there's, I guess, not a lot to say. So if I was going to choose a single host with have a single host with multiple VMs, what operating system would you recommend? I don't fully understand that one. A single host with multiple operating systems with multiple VMs. Would you? So I'm going to tackle the last piece. Maybe that'll answer the first piece because I don't fully understand the first piece. But what? Yet another null. There are lots of nulls in here. I like it. Well, at least you're not null because you're here and you exist. I guess null is still defined. I was going to say you're undefined, but you're not defined. You are defined as null. But anyways, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. Another null. There's so many nulls. There's included null, not null, yet another null. I like it. Anyways, so I'll go after your last one. Rainbow Shaggy. Hey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. Thanks for the follow. Yeah. So what's my take on container-specific operating systems? So I have very little. I'll say I have very little. Very little experience with them. Like I've used Rancher OS before, and I obviously know about K3 OS. These are operating systems that are built and hardened and designed to do a specific task. And K3 OS is built and designed just to run K3S. So it's an operating system, gives you K3S, and keeps it up to date, gives you ways to manage the operating system. So generally my take is that I try to treat, I have a pretty standard baseline for my servers. And my baseline for that servers is Ubuntu server. Could be any operating system. That's not really important. But I choose one and I stick with it, and then I build on top of that. So why do you pick one operating system? Why don't you use something that's more specific like K3 OS? Sure, there's lots of good reasons why you would do this. But the reason why I choose Ubuntu or name your Linux distribution is because I know how to manage that thing. I know how to back it up. I know how to upgrade it. I know when something is wrong. I know what utilities are on there. I know how to install utilities on there. I know how to run Ansible against it. I know how to back up that device. I know how to take snapshots. I know that it's going to work with my hypervisor and my hypervisor's tools, like the QEMU guest agent. And so it goes back to that. It's like, how do I want to manage, my infrastructure? And if I have a one-off like K3 OS, again, not saying there's anything wrong with it. If you think that's good for you and you want to try it, yeah, go for it. But for me, I mean, it's just more cattle, right? How am I gonna manage and what's the care and feeding look like for all my cattle? If it's, I care and feed for all of my cattle this one way, and that works for all but one. Now I got to do this one special thing for this other cow. I don't know. This is a bad metaphor. But anyways, it just goes into maintenance, care, and feeding, and my familiarity with it. It'd be like if I was a Windows administrator and I was like, yeah, I could run. I don't know. I'm trying to relate to someone who may not run or understand K3 OS or Ubuntu. But if I was a Windows administrator and everything was whatever, it was whatever Windows Server 2020. I don't know if that's out. 2019, I think that's out. But for this one server, they had a hardened version of Windows that Windows CE. I don't know. I'm making this up, but there was a hardened version of another OS that, although it does exist for a very specific reason, it makes it a lot harder for me to manage, in my infrastructure. And so would I choose to run that hardened lockdown version of that OS, or would I choose a version of Windows that I could run and install that same service and get that running? And so it just boils down to that. Like if you're running 100% Edge, and this environment is only K3S, right? Because K3S is really built and designed to run on the edge, where you're going to throw it in the cloud, you're going to throw it in some environment where it's edge only, and that's it. And everybody comes through the edge to communicate with and back out, right? With us, we have the ability to run it at home and do a lot of other things. So if I was running it completely edge and it was only a K3S environment, let's say, I don't know, I ran some store and it only, and I managed this store and it was only Kubernetes, only K3S, I might consider it. I might just say, yeah, harden it, lock it down, let me manage it the way you want me to manage it, because there's nothing else running in that environment. But for me, in my environment, I try to keep things that make it easier for me to manage these servers and to I don't know, care and feed for them kind of the same way. So anyways, nothing against operating specific things or distributions of Linux targeting one specific things. I think those are great. But for me, give me my base OS image, which is whatever. For me, it's Ubuntu. It might be CentOS or anything for you guys. And let me manage it that way. Because I know that I know in and out how I'm going to, build it, update it, manage it, back it up. Name your task. If I've done it before, I'm going to do it the same way across all of those machines. And so, yeah, anyways, hope that helps. Lots of questions. PC Geek, Blue Iris uses Windows Media Encoder. Okay, good to know. RT Skin, do you do client work, coding custom Discord bots for competitive platforms? No. No, I don't do client work. Nope. I have a full-time job and I have a full-time hobby. And no, I don't. Everything I do outside of work is for my household or for things I manage myself or little side ventures I have going on. So no, I don't do anything other than like the company I work for. Obviously, as far as work goes, that comes first. Everything else is for my house and my home and a ton of side projects I have going on. So nope, no client work. Let's see. Ruiz Mari, should I wait? Oh, that's in there again. Okay. Let's see. Lots of answers to questions. You guys are using Threads today. Awesome. I want to create a large application, probably with lots of users across platform, iOS and Android. Oh yeah. So this is in a thread, but not a thread. Anyways, cross-platform, you got lots of options there. I won't go into that because I could talk about cross-platform for probably an hour. But yeah. HomeLab New, how are you securing communications between your reverse proxy and your backend services though? I think this is going back into here. So between my reverse proxy and my backend services. Yeah, this is a great question. I mean, wherever you terminate SSL, obviously you're going to have that gap between that service and that reverse proxy. There are ways to isolate that communication. I don't know off the top of my head. But that last mile, I'll say it's also sensitive too. So I don't have an answer for that. I mean, it'd be the same way that anyone else would be securing that traffic from a reverse proxy. So wherever you terminate SSL, that last mile from the load balancer back to that service, how does anyone protect that traffic? So that's a pretty sensitive last mile right there for sure. It's only a gnome. Hey, Timbo. Hey, how's it going? Xtink. Hello. How's it going? Keep up the good work. Thank you. Techno. A lot of stuff going on. Jacket Bandcast. Have you butted heads with the GIL yet? I don't know what GIL is, so I guess not. I haven't butted heads with a lot of people. I try not to. So anyways, don't know the answer to that. Bedron. Hey, Tim. Starting to learn Redux today. React Redux feels very powerful, but all over the place. Yeah, I totally agree. Another one of those, I think, paradigm shifts for me, like Kubernetes. So I'm a software developer, and there was life, I can remember life before Redux and life after Redux, just like with my, I guess, DevOps or services. There's life before Kubernetes and there's life after Kubernetes. And I feel like if you're doing front-end development, you have that same huge paradigm shift with Redux. And so for a while, I was just like, kind of the same thing I felt with Kubernetes was one, overwhelmed, two, it's like this whole entire new paradigm that I don't fully understand. Like I get it how it works, but I don't understand workings or even how to use it or apply it. I felt that same thing with Redux. So I'm glad you feel motivated. Sounds like that's a positive spin on it. Feels very powerful, but all over the place. Yeah, I totally agree. I guess that's kind of a positive it's a backhanded compliment. It is tough, and a lot of people will prescribe how to do Redux to you. And I've been doing Redux for years, and it's slightly changed over time. And so anyways, if you're not familiar with Redux, it's basically global state. It's, arguably, I mean, that's what it does best, but it's a mutable global state for your applications. And you have an API to be able to say, hey, state change, and state basically returns a modified copy of the state. So it's supposed to be immutable. You shouldn't mutate your state. You should use an API to tell your state to change. And so that's what a lot of front ends are using now to manage their state. And I agree, it's pretty complicated, and it's a ton of copy pasted too. I mean, I thought like Kubernetes stuff was copy pasted. No way. I think Redux has the most boilerplate out of anything I've ever used. But at the same time, it's very declarative and it's very straightforward, easy to test, and once you get it, it's fantastic, because then you're like, okay, I mean, not everything needs to go in Redux, but most things I end up putting in Redux just because it's easy to get to from a lot of places. So anyways, I won't go, I could talk about Redux all day. But Redux is once you get it, it's awesome, because you can apply that same idea a lot of different places. It's only a gnome. Does anyone else think ESB is a complete pile of dog poo? Yeah. Rexroof, using the word agents to describe worker nodes is just a K3S thing. No, it's not. No, Kubernetes, I think, is switching. I think they're vernacular too, to basically switch from master to I don't know what they call them, the workers, to agents as well. I've seen it's mixed for sure. Rexroof, I love that Tim reads the whole chat, but he gets so far behind. Now, I totally agree. I'm catching up though. Jack and Bandcast, the resource allocation for pods is effectively implementation of the knapsack problem managed by the API server. All right, thank you for that. Lucan Kratos, LOL. I did not mean to ask you anything regarding PowerShell. I meant I was checking your videos the whole week, writing down questions so I can ask on Thursday. Thank you very much for answers. Very well explained indeed. Thank you. Yeah, I thought you were gonna hit me with some PowerShell questions. I'm like, I'm totally gonna deflect this one, and hopefully someone else can pick it up, because, like I said, done very few PowerShell. I can't even remember. There's one I run every now and then to enable Hyper-V on my Windows machine, or to turn it off because something else needs virtualization. That's about as far as it goes for me. Jacket Bandcast. On the subjects volume, you can also mount things like config files directly from config maps. There you go. Yep. Into a volume directly, so you can update a config map, and the file should also update in the containers for sure. Yeah, config map is a yeah. I totally agree. Config map is a great way to do it too. When I said config earlier, I meant the way that Linux server does it is they basically have a config folder. That is everything that needs to persist. And so when I said config, I should have clarified, because sometimes it's not config, it's actual data. But then if you go to config map 2, you have a very specific, key value pair, and sometimes your data doesn't fit in a key value pair or nicely. And sometimes that's, that you could spend a lot of time on that and getting your config maps right too. Anyways, but yeah, I use config maps for a couple of my services, and I totally agree. Absolutely the way to go if you can. HomeLab new, let's say you have a single node, but didn't want to manually mount the folders on my host machine's containers. Is there some way to just say, here pod, take this bit of storage that your pod always gets. I don't care where the bit of storage really lives, but you have it, and this pod will always get it. Yeah, persistent volume claim. Yeah, we talked about that. HomeLab new, yeah, it's persistent volume claim. That's exactly what it's for. I think we were talking about that earlier. That's exactly what it's for. Basically says this is your claim. You've claimed this storage. It's yours. Anytime you're up, you can have it. And then if you allow multiple pods to also have it, or multiple, different pods to have it, they can have it too. So yeah, absolutely. Jacket Bandcast, my question was more around traffic directly or use Cert Manager. All right, well then ask it that way. I'm teasing you. So no, I use traffic directly. Yeah, Cert Manager. Yeah. The lines are very blurry around there. I know that they're both trying to solve similar problems and different problems. And I tried to. I was going to make it even more complicated, and I was going to tell traffic to then use Cert Manager's certificates, but I was just like, this is getting way out of control for my configuration. And I felt like I wasn't on a supported path anymore. So I ended up just going with just traffic because I figured it out. I still have Cert Manager in my environment. I could probably take it out now because I actually don't even need it. I only needed it for Rancher to generate a self-signed one. But now that I have Rancher behind traffic, I don't even need it anymore. So arguably I could remove that from my environment. I have traffic 2 as my ingress controller with Cert Manager provisioning the certs on the ingress requests. That's awesome. I have exactly that except for traffic provisioning the certs and storing the certs in my persistent volume claim. Awesome. That's awesome to know. Rex Roof. I have to go eat dinner. Thanks for being such a wholesome streamer, Tim. I hope you have a great weekend. Hey, thank you. Thanks. I like being wholesome, I think. I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much. VTCN. Anyone play with Rancher's new hyper-converged infra solution called Harvester? No, I haven't, and I heard about it a few times. I think PC Geek brought it to my attention a couple of weeks ago, and I keep glancing at it. And it does look interesting. I just want it to be a little bit further along before I even attempt it or even play with it. Like it definitely sounds interesting. But it sounds like stuff that Red Hat's doing too. And I don't know if this is, I don't know if they're, I don't know. I don't know what their motivation is. Obviously, they're trying to do, I guess, metal as a service, kind of, sort of, build, take a whole bunch of machines, put them together, create a cluster, know nothing about Kubernetes, get Kubernetes going, and also get some virtualization, at the same time. So it sounds definitely interesting. It's just so new that I'm cautiously optimistic because I don't know how far along it is. Obviously, things like Rancher, K3S, a lot of the stuff they've been doing are fantastic products, and I'm not trying to say Harvester isn't. I just mean that I'm waiting till they get a couple releases in there. But I definitely want to check it out. I just don't know how it will fit into my infrastructure now. It would be, that's a monumental shift. To switch to something like that, having, Harvester become your hypervisor, and your Kubernetes engine at the same time. Sounds awesome. Sounds awesome for sure. But yeah, anyways, sounds cool for sure. I need to look more into it. I keep looking at it, and I'm like, maybe in a couple weeks I'll try it again. DGAN TV. I decided to make a wildcard record for my lab domain instead of making a wildcard cert. So if I deploy a new service, it automatically resolves to the right IP, but the cert still needs to be requested. That's awesome. That is awesome. Here's one. XXCR. So cracks. Hey Tim, I have a question. I already wrote under one of your vids. Set up a Windows VM, installed drivers and stuff, and found out that my RAM speed is super bad. I get around 1.5 gigabytes per second. Any idea why that happens? Linux VMs are fine. Enough free RAM is there. Numa is on. I have no idea. Your RAM speed is super slow. Yeah, I have no idea, to be honest. And if it's Windows only, I mean, how? That's interesting. How are you testing your RAM speed? I assume you're using a tool within your virtualization machine. Like, what led you down the path to test your RAM speed in a virtual machine? This is super interesting. I'm curious to know about your troubleshooting steps to get to this point. You're probably like, hey, this virtual machine's slow. Why is it slow? Well, it's not disk. I can read and write disk pretty fast. Well, I don't know. Things seem sluggish. It has enough RAM. RAM's not maxed out. It's not paging to disk. So I'll test RAM speed within a virtual machine. I'm just trying to understand how you got to that point. And then, how you can validate that Linux is fine. Yeah, I don't know. I wish I had the answer to this. I've never tested my RAM speed within a virtual machine. I guess I haven't. I've trusted the RAM speed that the BIOS tells me for that machine is going to be the same exact thing that I see within the virtual machine. So I don't know. I would love to know more about that one for sure. Stexy. I'm gonna go with Stexy. Hi all, first time got to watch live. Greetings from Germany. Hey, from Germany. A lot of Germans in here. Love it. Hope you're doing well. Cracks. We'll see how long I will stay and how long Tim will be here. LOL. Any of you guys, girls, have any idea of RAM speed on? Yeah, you guys are trying to figure this out. Let me see. Dex Vinyl. Forget all that RAM. No matter speed runs at something like 1800 megahertz, except and XCP at C is basically an overclock. Oh man, you guys are on this RAM topic. I love it. Riprath, just taking a break from studying and going for my AWS sysops. Hey, congratulations. I hope it works out well for you. Tronan, 1990. Hey, Life Puzzler Elite. Hey, thanks for the resub. 5 months. Thank you so much, Life Puzzler. 5 months. Appreciate it so much. Oh man, I gotta get caught up. I gotta get it caught up for a couple reasons. One, because I'm gonna have to call it, man. There are other times where I've slowly made it through chat, but man, you guys have so many great things to say. I apologize that this might be the one time where I can't really get through all of it. So I'm just gonna look for mentions. There are other times where I start to scroll and I realize I'm towards the end, but I'm nowhere near the end. So I'm going to get caught up to only mentions. I will definitely go with Kubernetes. So this is from TBS Backer. Sure, there's a learning curve, but willing to take it. Besides, your videos are make a great starting point to get going. All right. Thank you. I like that sentiment. I'm looking for mentions. HomeLab New, Tim, how goes the self-hosted Mac builds situation? It's great. So you saw that on Twitter. So on Twitter, I posted a picture basically saying, hey, I have a Mac Mini build server in my house now in my rack. And, I have this, and you know what my rack looks like. Maybe you don't. But anyways, you can imagine, an 18U rack with all of this stuff in it and then just a Mac Mini build server. And I think anyone who develops iOS apps can probably relate because you can only build iOS apps on a Mac device. And so, yeah, so we're doing some moving and at work. And I was like, well, take the Mac Mini home. And so when we build our app, it'll build from here. And so we have this built in a way anyways, it can build from anywhere. All it needs is the internet connection and it can build our software. So pretty easy. It's basically just plug it in, give it some internet and it's back on. It's our build server for Mac. And we can release apps. So yeah, it's pretty interesting for sure. It's funny seeing it in there. It's only temporary. It's not staying around for a long time, but yeah, it's anyone who builds software for iOS can relate. You need a Mac to build iOS software. It's the most expensive dongle I think in the world is a MacBook, or a Mac in general to build software for iOS. Techno Tim, can you use Rancher across hardware platforms like server NAS, Pi? So this was from the man. Only if you have Docker containers. So think about Rancher. Think about, I'm going to peel this back a little bit. I won't go too far so I don't confuse you, man. But Rancher is just a way to give you a containerization platform and orchestration. All right, I'll peel it way back. Okay, so Rancher gives you a containerization orchestration framework called Kubernetes. And Kubernetes is a way to orchestrate containers. Those containers can be Docker, CRIOs, Containerd, whatever. But those containers, we'll just say Docker containers, have a process. And so if your server or your NAS or your Pi or the things that you list can run in Docker, then they can run on Rancher. So that's an easy way to look at it. Like, hey, are the things I want, do they have Docker images for them out there? If the answer is yes, then yeah, absolutely you can run because you have a platform to run containers. If they don't, then they won't. So it's most likely for NAS. I don't know. That would be super interesting. Actually, I wish it was. But does and I think this goes into is it an operating system, or is it just a process you want to run? So hopefully that answers your question. Basically, you just have to say, hey, does a Docker image exist for this thing I want to run? If the answer is yes, then absolutely it's going to run inside of Docker, Swarm, Kubernetes, Portainer, all that stuff, because they all run containers. LOL Palmy. Have you ever heard or tried Elm programming languages? I have. I haven't tried it. Have I heard of it? Absolutely, I have. I know very little about it. What's your take on it? Thunderstorm 9199. Techno Tim. Any free time to spend with his wife? Yeah. Yeah, you're not the only one asking that. I Thunderstorm made a good point, and that's why I'm kind of trying to wrap it up right now because I'm way over, and I don't want to make her wait more than I already do. Techno Tim, GTA 5 was really slow at hanging streaming parsec. Okay, folders take some time to open. Run some benchmarks, and I thought it was all fine. So I thought I would download IDA 64, benched everything, and slow RAM. Did some more stuff. Check level and text form. There is a thread. If you really want to get into it, that is awesome. Great troubleshooting for you. That is fantastic. Cracks. That is how you got to it. I love it. I love that you dug that deep and got to that point. Because I can't remember the last time I was like, it's got to be RAM speed. Because I just trust that all that's working. So awesome. Thank you for digging deep and figuring it out. I would have bet, with virtualization, with GPU pass-through, with Parsec, I would think like video encoder. I would go after the video card. I'd be like, video card, something like, because with Parsec, it's, if you play a game and use it with Parsec at the same time, it's basically doing dual duties. It has to, use your GPU to play the game and render 3D stuff and do all the game stuff. But at the same time, then Parsec has to transcode that video output back to you, but obviously you dug deep, so I like it. I hope you figured it out. I haven't seen anything, any reason why RAM speed would be low. My only suggestion, and this is probably based off of 10 years ago, is to just make sure, and you probably check this, that your Windows machine is in performance mode or something. There's basically nothing bottlenecking any of the speed or any restraints around that Windows machine. Just full bore performance. And go in the little performance whatever tree and say max performance, and that's all I got. Because I've never seen a virtual machine just like, no, I'm gonna clock down this virtual RAM, because that's what it is. I didn't even think I'd have control over that. Home Avenue, Techno-Tim's getting too big. We need to scale out more pods and answer more questions. Yeah, I don't scale. I don't. I haven't figured out the concurrency problem or how to scale. And yeah, I totally agree. That's why I have to. I just little bits and pieces here and there. Jack and Bandcast, FYI, Techno-Tim, if you ever want to run traffic HA, Cert Manager appears to be the only blessed solution. Interesting. Yeah, I'll have to look into that. I thought that with Traffic has this thing called Pilot now. It's an enterprise, I think, product that I thought gave you some HA. But yeah, I'll look into it. I know that Traffic spins up. It only has one services. Obviously, it's not HA. But yeah, I'll have to look. I thought Traffic had something called Pilot. I haven't looked that much into it, and I thought that was their solution. But it's an enterprise solution. It's a paid product, so I get it. They got to make money. But I thought I thought Traffic Pilot was the answer to that. So interesting to know. Good to know. Fury Lane. Hey, thanks for the follow. Appreciate it. Welcome. Elm. Yeah, I love Elm and functional programming. This is LOL Palm. Elm is a simple and powerful language for creating websites. It's TypeScript, Redux. Redux React, but without boilerplate. Recommend checking it out. Awesome. So it's Elm Stack then, right? Language for creating a website. It's TypeScript, Redux, React. I think I've heard of this before. So it's Elm's. No, now I'm thinking of Elk Stack, but I'm throwing Elm in it. I have heard of Elm before. I thought it was a stack, but maybe I'm thinking of Elk Stack. So it's not technically a language. It's a combination of a couple. I'll check it out for sure. I've done so much React Redux, boilerplate. It's just like second nature to me. I mean, I have a lot of middleware to take care of some of that, but yeah, I'll have to check it out. So I appreciate it. Racks, keep sliding them in. All right. But real quick, 2 more comments and we're going to call it. Fury Lane. Hey dude, how's it going? Good. Thank you so much for the follow. I do appreciate it. And I'm sorry, but we're just getting ready to end the stream here in a little bit. I got one more comment, but I'm glad you stopped in. How are you doing today? Racks. Yeah, I suspected the GPU too, but it isn't found it weird that the GPU didn't boost as it should. So I could see it's not the problem. Every performance stuff in the VM is set. Also set up Windows 7, thought maybe it's something with Windows 10. All right, I like the troubleshooting going on here, but it wasn't, still slow. I'm all out of knowledge and thought maybe you had an idea. No, I wish I did. And it seems like you've exhausted every avenue. And I mean, the only other thing I could think of is maybe if you're using Proxmox, change your machine type. And I'm just guessing. Change your machine type to a different machine type, or your North Bridge, South Bridge. I think I forget the different types. It's I-440 something, and the other one is Q. I don't know. I'd have to look. I mean, you might want to change it with messing around with your machine type. And then I don't know if the little BIOS in the virtual machine has any settings other than changing your boot order. If it does, you can play around in there too. I don't know. I'm just spitballing some ideas, maybe some more avenues, more rabbit holes to go down. So I hope it works out for you. Oh, gotcha. Okay, so LOL Palm, it's a functional programming language. Redux is said to be inspired by Elm. Gotcha. Architecture. Yeah. Hey, man, so much. Man, you guys, there's so much activity, so many comments today. I think today was one of the first times where I couldn't read them through and I had to basically focus on only mentions only. So I appreciate it. And that's a good problem to have. So I appreciate it. I appreciate you being here. If you have things to say, you want to connect with other people, you have questions, or you want to racks, you want to troubleshoot some more about your virtual machine and get some ideas other than me, we have a whole entire community that a lot of people that are in the channel right now are a part of, and you can join that community just by clicking on that link. So I encourage you to join if you'd like. HomeLab New, yeah, Discord, and he's on Discord voice chat. HomeLab News all over it. HomeLab New is also in our Discord as well. If you're not, I encourage you to join. Very great community, very helpful community, very positive community. And a lot of people with a lot of different knowledge across a lot of domains and different parts of the world. It's fantastic. So I encourage you to join. And also, I just want to say thank you real quick for stopping in. Like today's stream was fantastic. high energy from you guys, which I feed off of. You guys are excited about stuff. I get super excited about stuff. So I thank you for making this time go by so fast. I can't believe how late it is compared to what I normally stream on Saturday. So I appreciate it. I said today I was going to short one, but it turned out to be a little bit longer. Yeah, that's a good thing. Hopefully my wife thinks the same thing. Anyways, I appreciate you coming. Thank you so much. Lots of follows in there. Lots of bits, lots of subs. I really appreciate it. And I always say this, and I truly mean it, that just coming here and chatting is more than I could have ever imagined, a year ago. So I really appreciate it. And I'll have some more stuff, I think, coming out here shortly. So I encourage you to join Discord or whatever, listen on Twitter or however you want to connect with me. I encourage you to do so because I got some more stuff coming, and I'll probably have it out here in a little bit. And I will be back on Tuesday. So I really appreciate, I'm going to sneak one more follow in there. All right, Ancient Coder, thanks so much for the follow right there at the end. I really appreciate you coming out. Thank you so much. Have a great weekend. I will see you guys Tuesday. And as always, be good to each other. Please take care.